Fill her up.
You're listening to the Gas Digital Network.
With Robb Flynn.
What up? What up? What up? Podcast party people. How you doing? How you living? I notice that every time I say this, I kind of rock back and forth in my chair a little bit. I just kind of get into the groove. I'm like, podcast party people. It's kind of comfortable. I got a little flow going. I got a flow, man. That's what's happening. All right, I'm back in the podcast game, y'all. I'm back. I got a great guest, Wes Hauch. Not Hauch. Why do I keep on saying? He corrected me already. Wes Hauch. Looks like Hauch, which is what I called him at the beginning of the interview. It's actually Hauch. Wes Hauch. And, yeah, he was a cool dude, man. Cool mofo. Ripping guitar player. Fucking shredding guitar player. Ridiculous. Shred-tastic skill. Fucking Shreddy Krueger. Shreddy Van Halen. Shreddy Mercury. Fucking hell. Or as the British say, fucking hell. That's my Danny Headcase imitation right there. Fucking hell. I'm going to keep this kind of a short intro, which, you know, by my gauge, short. This podcast is 2.5 hours long, so I was like, fuck, I'll keep the interview shorter, or the intro shorter. But I did have a few things that I wanted to get to based on last week's podcast. And to anybody who listened, I really appreciate all the stuff that you guys said and wrote in. Very helpful. You know, I was talking about my mom passing away, and you guys wrote in your experiences, and there were some pretty heavy ones. And I was going to read some of the heavier ones. And I'm not going to say the names because some people asked to have their names withheld, like they didn't want this story coming out. So I'll just read their story, and I'll just kind of say, you know, so and so if they mention somebody's name. But one of you guys wrote, "Oh, dude, I just finished the podcast. There's two pieces that really echoed with me from when so and so was ill and passed away. The eternal hope that you spoke of, that anything can be done. That somehow the illness," and I count addiction as illness, so in my head this works, "will be alleviated and they'll start to get better. I felt that so much, even after knowing there was no cure, that the treatment was only palliative. That little bit of me clung on to hope until the bitter end. And then, when all hope is gone, the hollow numbness that forms in its place is devastating and really hard to describe. Also, when you start to emerge from that, that retrospective on life, the need to be better, to better yourself, to be better to others, it's almost like a metamorphosis. I like that love for that person, and that grief drives you hard to change. Thank you for being honest. I'm sure more than one person will hear that and find some solace in it, that you're not alone. You're not alone." Some people wrote into let's see where we at here. Some people wrote into the podcast. Let's see. Rob, just wanted to reach out tonight after tonight's podcast. My mom had been hovering at death's door for a month now. It's been touch and go day by day, and I'm slowly giving into the fact that my mom might pass away any time right now. I just got done listening to your podcast tonight and decided to reach out. Thanks for sharing your experience. I'm scared shitless of losing my mom. We haven't always had the best relationship. I can't imagine a world or I can't call her and ask her for advice on the drop of a dime. Stay strong. Yeah, let's see. Someone else wrote, "Hey Rob, just finished your latest episode and fuck man, I was moved to email to share you some of my experience. My mom got sick in 2005. She started having sight issues, went to the doctor. Eyes were being attacked by her white blood cells, causing her sight problems. They put her on steroids, some other drugs. Fuck man, she was rattling. She was taking so many pharmaceuticals. So she was on them for the next 10 years. Like you said about yours, I always felt the cure was the cure, quote unquote, was worse than the disease. So many more health issues because of the fucking steroids. Hair started to fall out. She put on weight in her face. Her bones were brittle. Horrible, horrible drugs. So many hospital visits. Fast forward to 2014. Finally diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma and started going through chemo. Had to stop. It was being so aggressive. She finally died, and she was only 53. Wow. It's pretty young. In a weird way, I felt some sort of relief. She was at peace. Kind of stupid to say now, but there was no more pain, no more drugs. Yeah, I hear you, man. I hear you. You know, some people, someone else wrote, I don't want to go into detailed stories about it, but my dad was an alcoholic. He was never abusive and aggressive, though he wasn't the same when he was sober. It was not possible to talk about that stuff with him. He was always easy on drinking, but when he lost his job because the company got sold, he was a broken man, and he wasn't able to care for his family. And talking about my family, my brother is a longtime heavy drug addict, cocaine, heroin, whatever. Rough times for me as an 11 or 12-year-old to understand and, quote, unquote, get along with. Even if I didn't know at this point that this was around the last 20 high times when he didn't come home for days. Searching for him on the streets of the city nearby. To summarize it, a lot of fear, pain, anxiety, and loneliness. So that makes 2 of 3 family members for me. Third is my mom. She struggles. She's handicapped and struggled with MS since 40 years. Not easy being on yourself. My dad died 8 years ago, 4 months before my marriage, which is going to be divorced as soon as I can pay for the lawyer. Hooray for me. He had a stroke. Society broke him. Brother's clean now. But hopefully with all this wall of words, we'll help you find peace with the things that stir you up and give you at least a new perspective to look at them. And I hope this is what you expected. Someone else is, my mom is still alive, but I've never had the fantasy that I could save her. That ship sailed long ago. All I can do is make the best of it and manage her effect on me, and I know I can't talk about it to people. I've hinted at it a time or two, but you can never tell the whole truth because what happens if you tell the wrong person and the cops show up at her door? That wouldn't help her or me, anyone. The closest I've gotten is probably a post talking about being raised by alcoholics and drug dealers. We have a lot in common there. Makes you think about your cause and effect and how we end up where we were. At some point, yeah, it goes into quite a bit here. It goes into quite a bit on this one. Pretty heavy stuff. Really heavy stuff. But I appreciate you guys writing in. It was heavy. It was, someone else wrote that their father's alcoholism accompanied them since childhood into adulthood. He went through a rehab, managed to stay sober. And then someone else wrote, speaking from your heart, appreciate it. And thanks for the hilarious story about her setting up her dating profile. That shit is awkward. But hey, you were there for her. My mother-in-law is terrible. I know everyone says that about their mother-in-law, yes, but mine is certifiably paranoid, hooked on opiates, has personality disorders, but she won't get help for it. She won't get treated. She thinks everyone else is crazy. The problem is she's alienated every last motherfucker in her life because she's so cruel, so insufferably toxic. She has 5 brothers who won't speak with her. She has loads of friends who won't return her calls. Of course, she thinks it's because the CIA has gotten to them and Bill Gates lives in her attic. Anyway, my wife, her daughter, is the only person who still takes her calls. And Yeah, man. A lot of you guys went through some rough stuff too, and it was great reading this. There was many more in the comments in YouTube too, and I think I've read all this. I read all these, just so you know. I read everything. I read all the comments in YouTube, and somebody here talks about. Then when my mom sat my brother and my father and myself down to give us a talk, it seemingly came out of nowhere, but my mom detailed years of physical, psychological, and sexual abuse by my grandfather. She told us that she wanted us to have a relationship with him that was different than hers, but it was so clarifying to years of my life, and my stomach flipped. I hated him. I screamed and I cried and just felt so much pain because the man was capable of so much evil, and yet someone I love more than anyone else. So, yeah, man, you guys had some heavy stories too. And it's complicated, right? Like it's complicated. And I'm glad you guys wrote those things. Thank you for that. I want to say I appreciated reading them, and I'm grateful to read them. And, you just don't, I think for me, I didn't even really, and I may have talked about this last week, but it didn't even dawn on me that she could have been on all those drugs until so many years later. And it was probably 10 or 15 years ago when I put it all together. And, I knew she was on some stuff here and there, but, we started going to the doctor's office with her, and then we were like, holy fuck. Well, yeah, man, keep your head up. Keep your head up and keep doing that. And I appreciate it once again. I want to get to and anybody else who wants to write anything too. I'll read your stories as well. If you want to go back and listen to the previous podcasts and kind of reference what I'm talking about, you can do that. But check it out. I'm going to switch subjects now. This is not going to be the most graceful segue, but switching subject. I'm going to go on to my guest, Wes Hauch, and check out these new lights, huh? I got some new colored lights behind me. I don't know. I might put something up. I want something up here. I like it. Looks good. I like the little framing, the light, adding some vibe. But, yeah, I want something like over here. Something. Oh, you know what I got? I got this colored light that I just bought at the store. It's like a fucking... I don't know what it does. I think it sparkles or something. We'll put some action happening back there. It'd be like acid trip, man. It'd be like frying on acid or mescaline or mushrooms. Anyway, Wes Hauch, super cool dude. What a good guy. I want you to check out this new song. He's got a new record dropping next Friday. And this first song here, I think this might be the third song they dropped. It's fucking good. Him on vocals. He's not singing very much, but voice sounds killer. Check this out. Cool guitar riff. Sounds killer, right? I love it. Chorus kicks in though. A little bar lick on the guitar is sick. I don't know. There's the other singer. Two singers. I think he's the main singer, actually. But the trade-off works killer. They need to do more of this. Check this out. This is a song called Ulysses. Is this the one with the heavy guitar thing? I watched all their videos the other day. apparently about his time in overseas in Iraq when he was in the military. There it is. Yeah. Sick picking riff. That's fucking sick. This is the other song off the new record. They've got like 3 or 4 singles out. Check out the videos. Check all that other shit. All right, let's get to the meat. Get to the meat. Anyway, without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, the mighty, not Wes Hauch, Wes Hauch, here on No Fucking Regrets. Wes Hauch.
That's very close. I mean, I don't blame you because that's what it looks like. It sounds like, but it's actually Hauch.
Hauch. Wes Hauch. All right.
I get it because like every other time that you see the word A or like the letters A and U together, you think of like August or whatever. But yeah, I mean, it's okay. I'm sure. You won't be the last. So
I'm not a professional.
we have the opportunity to, I guess, say it on here. So yeah, thanks for having me, man.
Wes Hauch. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Hauch. All right. Yeah. For all you in the future. I actually watched an interview earlier with you, and the guy said, he said Hauch too. So I guess that's where I stole it from. I was like, oh, he must know how to say it.
This, everything, I guess, kind of, starting to go back to normal in Oakland right now.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah. Restaurants are starting to open up, and I don't think bars are opened up, but you can go around Trader Joe's without your mask on if you want.
Oh yeah. Have you gotten it? Have you gotten the jab?
I did get it. I got both jabs, and I got coronavirus back in February of last year. So, so I was definitely.
Yeah, it seems very like like the types of. It's frustrating. Not that the average person, myself included, is like a fucking epidemiologist and should understand this, but like how it works is so weird. Like some people get it and then they never get it again. Some people get it twice, like JB Jonzo, as you call him, got it twice and it's fine. And then some people get it and die, and it's just it's odd. But I mean, I imagine that I'll be getting vaccinated pretty soon as well, so we can all go out and have fun.
Yeah, we went through New York back last year, and that was February, so it's about 4 weeks before everything shut down. And I mean, we just fucking. I could probably pinpoint the exact moment I got the coronavirus because we fucking raged. My wife was out there. We went to Duff's and I got to tell you, man, like we all got it, like everybody in the band and crew, and I hadn't been that sick in 20 years. I mean, it fucking devastated everybody, like sleeping for 17 hours and still just barely able to get out of bed. And we're playing 3-hour shows. It was like, what the fuck? This is crazy.
Oh, wow. Yeah, it's fucking, yeah, it's very odd. There's some weird symptoms too. Did you feel like there's a friend of mine who got it that said that he started to feel pressure like on his taint, like on his gooch, in between his balls and did that happen to you?
That did not happen to me.
Have you heard of that? I'd never heard of it until he told me about it. And I was like, oh. All right.
Pressure? No, I hadn't felt that. I couldn't even jack off. Like, I'm not even joking. Like, I was so fucking laid out. There was just like there was not a horny bone in my body.
Well, I mean, I understand it. It seems like it's sometimes it just takes people's taste away and everything, and then sometimes it's like what you're describing, where yeah, you're ruined. So
You don't think you've had it? You haven't had it this whole time?
no, I was. I mean, there was a period right before it happened last year where I felt like you know, I had like a phlegmy cough and I was really, really tired, but those symptoms aren't like congruent with everything else that I've seen. But yeah, I mean, I was out with someone in a band in Philly, and we got to the show, and within like, I mean, maybe 4 or 5 hours of loading in, there were just different promoters that were canceling around the country. So it just became like uh one show tour.
Was that the Thy Art Is Murder tour?
Yes, sir. Yeah, it was at TLA, and like, I swear, you know, I don't want to make it sound like, like it's crazy like anything that's gone on abroad in the world, but it just felt tense. It felt very odd. It was like definitely the first time that I'd felt that in America, where I was like, oh man, everything is fucking really tense and weird, and and at the time, I don't know about you, but I didn't necessarily think that this was going to last for 16, 17 months like it has. I felt like it was going to be gone, and or at least as far as the lockdown stuff was concerned, I thought it would be done in a few months, but now here we are. So
Yeah, I was talking to Patrick from Fit for an Autopsy. I think you guys did that tour together, right?
yeah.
And he was telling me just like what a fucking it was like the beginning of the tour, like they had just bought all this merchandise, like it just everybody lost their ass, and what a rough time it was. And I guess the show was great, right? Did you guys play? Did you guys were end to play?
We played the show, and then we all, like a good deal of the guys were Australian, so it was this panic of getting everyone flights. I just tried to get my shit and get out of everyone's way, because it was one of those like, yeah, same situation. Whole bunch of lights rented, whole bunch of merch printed up. Like I was thinking about this. There's a handful of bands that like really closed their books right before all of the shit happened. Slayer being the biggest one. Like, you imagine like those guys just like played that last show at the Grove, and they're like,
Right.
all right, we're good, boys. And then all this shit happened. They have to feel pretty grateful for that. And I mean,
3 weeks later, right?
yeah.
It's like dodge that fucking bullet. Holy shit.
Speaking of that, to pivot off of this Corona thing, like the amount of times that I've watched Live Intrusion, and then I've seen, that Venom cover that you did on that run. JB was telling me that like the next, like within like 6 months of you guys doing that Slayer run, you guys were playing the same rooms. Like you guys had just like, you were out as a support act and then came around and played all the same rooms headlining.
Yeah.
How was that as like a feeling in 95? Was it like, were you prepared for that as like a, whoa, we're that band now, we're that like?
I don't know. I mean, I think I was prepared for it to a point, like I was 26 by that point in my life. I had been touring since I was 19. And so I'd been on the road for a while. And
no, I mean, I just mean in the sense of it being like a, like, whoa, fuck type of moment, like type of thing. I mean, I know that you've been around, with violence and everything in the 80s for like many, many years before that. But I just meant like the sheer magnitude of being like, we're headlining the same rooms that we just did with Slayer a few months.
Yeah. No, I mean, I don't think, my goal for Burn My Eyes was I wanted to sell 20,000 records worldwide, and I wanted to open the one show in Oakland at the Henry J. Kaiser Center for Slayer. And if we achieved that, like we were the kings of the universe in my mind, like I felt it was like fairly 20,000 records worldwide. It's pretty modest. It's a pretty modest goal. I was like, that's a great first album. Fuck, man. And the one show. And look, to get the tour, to get, our record came in top 20 in the UK, and then they took us on tour, and they took us on tour in the US, and then we went back and did, the same rooms that we had just played opening for Slayer. And it was a bit of a head fuck, I felt like I dealt with it for the most part good. I had a couple of prima donna moments here and there, because I was just like, you'd wake up hungover, we did a 3-month tour, so it was a headline tour for 3 months. By that second month, you wake up, there's 30 kids outside of your bus, and all you want to do is take a shit and fucking drink your coffee, and it's like opening up your bedroom and there's 30 strangers, right? And you're like, oh, hey, look, I just want to Robb sign. I just want to take a shit. I don't want to talk to anybody right now. So I had a couple of those moments, like, fucking leave me alone. Fuck.
I mean, no, I've always kind of wanted to, especially when I found out I was going to get this, I wanted to get like an idea of what it was like. Cause having Machine Head, having as long of a career as it has, and like having kind of like become a big headlining band during an era where people got to still enjoy the spoils of like, being a big ass rock band. And I don't mean that in like a disparaging way. I just mean that there was just more money to go around. So there was just like you had the opportunity to like really be like, kind of like lean into being a fucking big ass rock band. And I always love when I get to talk to dudes like that, because I feel like it's this wrinkle in time that like me or like most of my friends will probably like, we're not ever going to get to experience. So it's definitely cool to get insight on it.
Yeah. It was an amazing moment. You know what I mean? Just Kerry King, I basically owe Kerry King my career, like he loved the record, loved the band. We hit it off on the road, and he took us fucking everywhere, like it was awesome. We had signed one of those classic Roadrunner deals where you give them everything. Publishing and merch and like nothing royalty rates, and we were just fucking 25 years old, and like just my bass player at the time was 20. It's like they had never even been in a band. Like Adam and Logan, like their first show they ever played was with Machine Head.
Oh wow.
For them, I had, like I said, I had been on the road for 5-6 years at that point, but this was their first thing, and so everything was new. And everything was super exciting. And, I could say, like, even before that tour, I had seen Slayer more than any other band on the planet. Like, I would drive, to LA, fucking to Fresno. I saw them in Fresno, your hometown, like a bunch of times, like Sacramento. I'd drive all over California to see Slayer, because I just fucking love Slayer. And, so to be able to get to see them for free every day, we did 88 shows with them. I think I missed 2 shows out of the whole thing, because it was fucking awesome to watch Slayer every night and learn from Slayer every night, and just like be grateful that I'm on tour. Every night.
Yeah, and especially in that era, I was thinking about this too, like for their time. For like, and I guess to whenever they called it last year, I don't know that there's been a single band that's had like from when they started. I'm talking about from like around the time with other bands that they like started around the time that they did, that's had more of an indelible like touch on several different genres. Like Slayer's touched hardcore, they've touched fucking black metal and death metal and everything like that. Death metal probably wouldn't really exist if it weren't for Slayer, because it was like, I'm also a very big fan. So I know, like, probably because you have such a career, like a lot of times when you do podcasts with people, it turns into being an interview of you. So I'm sorry if I ask too many questions like that.
I try and stop it, because it's like, this is about you. This ain't about me, but You know what I think too, that I think is an often look aspect of Slayer and just their overall awesomeness. And I never really hear guitar players talk about this, but I try and talk about it because having toured with Kerry so many times, but I think Kerry King is maybe the most underrated guitar player in all of metal. And I always say that, and somebody goes, what are you talking about? Like, everybody loves Slayer. And I'm like, I'm not talking about Slayer. I'm talking about Kerry King guitar playing. You know, like, he is so fucking accurate on the down picking. Like, you know, you listen to like Postmortem, like it's all down picking, you know, like the fucking leads. Not, you know, you think that the leads are just like some fucking whammy bar bullshit and like there's no real like rhyme or reason to it. No, they're like perfectly written out. They're played note for note every night, and it seems like a mess, but it's a mess that he duplicates every single night. You know, like, I don't know how you feel about that, but like, he's like, especially live.
I'd say no. I mean, I think that him and Jeff like were probably like I said, I think that they've influenced shit that's come way before him. Like, even more for me on the riff side of stuff. Like, when you look at a song like that, or just the front of Chemical Warfare, like that was on Live on Dead. That was way before like before you heard like Vogue going, you know, like fucking playing Nihility. Like, it was like, it's like the fact that those dudes conceived that, like, what if we played 16th note patterns that fast and like did them and shit. And then like, I think a lot of times their ideas maybe exceeded like the technical prowess of their hands at the time. But like, that's really what you look at with young men making music all the time. And it just ends up kind of just making a way bigger impact. Like, I don't listen to, and I've never like listened to Slayer for like the hearing something be squeaky clean. That's just not part of the package for them. Yeah. It's all about this. It's all about a way bigger thing for me. So
yeah. And this shit still, I mean, like, I'll brush up on Slayer songs at least once a week just to like keep my right hand in shape. You know?
Yeah, straight up.
It's still so goddamn hard to play. You know, like Postmortem's my go-to because it's just got everything. It's got the fucking sick, fast tremolo part at the end. It's got the down pick, and I'm like, fuck. Okay, dig in here, fucking dig in. We covered that song at one point. I don't know, probably 10 years ago, just live. And we were doing some festival days with Kerry. I was like, is that all down picking? Like, you're doing that? He's like, oh yeah, it's all, you motherfucker.
You're talking about the 6/8 thing in the front. Yeah. Yeah, that song does pretty much have every type of like heavy metal rhythmic motif that's gone on for the like the whatever 30 years would come past it. Yeah, I mean, dude, I'm a fan, and I always wanted to see how like that was for you. I mean, because like you guys, I'm obviously a fan of, and that's like a merger of eras of dudes. I guess that kind of like 95 Live Intrusion thing seems like it was almost like them at their like pretty prime. I don't want to say, because they've had a few different primes, but pretty primes, and then you guys being like young men at the time, sort of like ushering in maybe a new different style of like metal, definitely tuning down to B, and like like a lot of the sonic sort of stuff that's a staple for Machine Head, like the natural harmonics and like sort of the chorus modulation things and stuff like that. It's a pretty solid, that tour must have been like every fucking age group that there was that liked a distorted guitar was there, pretty much.
Yeah, it was a great tour. And Biohazard was in the middle.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So that was kind of the wild card, because they brought out a lot of people on the East Coast. Like, they were huge in New York at the time, but they had yeah, and I love Biohazard. Like, I fucking love those dudes, and I love their music. But like, it was definitely polarizing. In like, once we got to the Midwest, like people hated Biohazard. It was we were weird. We were like, what the fuck? Because we loved them, and so it was a fun thing. And then we had that connection because we loved thrash, and they loved thrash, and somehow those guys wanted to do that. I mean, they approached us, and we were gonna do. I was just talking about this with Chris, my drummer. We were gonna do. We were going to do another song originally. It wasn't going to be Witching Hour. I forget what it was. It might have been another Venom song, but it wasn't Witching Hour to begin with. And then we ran through it, and somebody didn't know it too well. And then Jeff was like, well, why don't you just play the guitar? And I was like, I'll go grab my guitar. He's like, no, you can play my guitar. And I was like, dude, I can't do that. I was like, I can't play your guitar. Like, that's fucking crazy. You should play. I'm like, this is your fucking band. Like, you should play this. Like, I'll just sing. Don't worry about it. He's like, it's fine. Don't worry. Like, I don't care. He's like, I don't even care about this. I was like, you sure? And it was kind of floating in the air the next day. Like, he might play or he might not. And then we're getting ready. I'm on the side of the stage. I know the show's getting over. NFL Films is filming it. Like, no pressure. Like,
oh yeah. Where was that? Because he says it's the last show of the tour. He says it's like the end of the tour. Like, Phoenix. Where was that? A Southern California show?
Yeah. Phoenix, Arizona.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, at an outdoor amphitheater. And so I'm standing in the wings waiting for him, and Jeff just walks up and he goes, "Treat her nice." Hands me the guitar, and I was like, "Fuck!" Like, playing to the hand. I'm like, of course you got to play like Slayer songs instantly just to hear that sound.
Yeah.
It was rad. It was a cool moment. I love Jeff. Man. He was a fucking great guy. Pretty deep. He's a pretty deep dude.
Yeah, I got the impression he liked, like, there's this one, sorry to keep just going on the Slayer stuff for everyone who's...
We can talk about anything. It's called No Fucking Regrets. Like, it can go anywhere.
There's this one, it's a TV special from this British guy that's like, I think this is in 96 or 97, and it's some Slayer headliner, and they're kind of interviewing band and crew and everyone, and it's System of a Down opening, and Sepultura like is direct, and there's this part where they have been waiting to interview Jeff all day, but I guess he'd just gone out and like looked at all kinds of like museums and fucking like royal architecture and stuff like that, you know what I mean? And they were like, I got the impression from that he was way into deeper shit than I guess just, the metal gig,
Yeah, for sure. He was always like, he took a long time to get to know too, you know what I mean? Like, he wasn't like the, hey dude, let's party guy, like he was always kind of quiet. He would just chime in with like something really funny every once in a while, or just kind of biting humor, like dissing somebody. And then that's it. But then after a while you got to know him, and it was a crazy time for him on that tour. Cause he had developed, I think it was because I think it was because of headbanging, but, he had been losing, feeling in his arms. He had like pinched nerves and stuff. And so he had been losing to the point where like his hands would be completely numb at times, like on stage. And they were playing 3 new songs from that tour, and he kept on walking off stage whenever they would go into that song. And they wouldn't say anything about it. Like, they'd just go into the song. Carrie would play it, Carrie, Paul, and Tom. And then Jeff would walk off stage, and then he'd come back on. And, from an outsider who isn't in the mix of what they're all going through, I just thought, oh, he doesn't like the songs or something. And he's just like walking off stage or something. And I was like, so finally I ended up, a couple weeks, 2 or 3 weeks into the tour, we finally ended up broing down one night. And I was just like, how come you're walking off? Like, why are you walking off the stage during those songs? And he's just like, I can't play them. Like, they're so fast, and my hand can't get through it because it's going numb part of the way through. And I was like, fuck, that sucks. Like, that sucks. Like, what a
yeah, it does suck.
Like, what a shitty feeling that must be, because he's like, I feel like I'm letting everybody down, and like he was super bummed out about it, but he felt worse standing on stage because he couldn't do it. So in his mind, it was helping the band save face by walking off.
Well, I think that like that dude's, I don't know, I actually haven't combed through the catalog entirely, but like a lot of my favorite Slayer songs are Jeff songs, like, just like favorite Slayer riffs and everything. It's definitely, I love a lot of Carrie stuff too, but just from what I've observed from writing credits, I'm a big fan of that dude's shit. It's almost like like I said, there's, when you pair like being a young man and like kind of like having your finger on the pulse of like, I don't know, young energy, or I guess in terms of like how that young energy is going to get other people involved or capture their imagination with your music. And then you kind of like are at the tip of the spear for a type of music that is, the book hasn't been entirely written yet, being thrash and everything. Like there's so much shit with that dude that like, I think he just had like a killer imagination, a killer, like, I don't know. He was just like, yeah, do you think you just tapped into something and has made a bunch of music that has had an indelible mark to like this day. I know that it's weird. It's weird because when I sit there and I think about the first time when I was 15, 16 years old, when I heard Master of Reality, sure, the production and stuff like that was a little antiquated, it wasn't pulverizing, but I still like really, really enjoyed, like the music. Whereas if I show my kids a Slayer or Pantera record now, they can't even listen to it because it's like the production isn't there for them. They want to hear everything be like squeaky clean and like, you know what I mean? It's I guess perfect. Each generation sort of is like reared on a certain type of fidelity, and maybe because of that they like they're unable to kind of like backtrack and listen to certain stuff. But I mean, I'm grateful for the era that I grew up in and that I got to like experience Slayer at that age as a teenager.
What do your kids listen to?
They like K-pop, and they like a lot of this older stuff that I show them, which is like Bowie and Elton John and stuff like that. They like a lot of I guess like the more contemporary sort of metalcore, like I guess August Burns Red and Wage War and I Prevail and stuff like those. That's the shit that really gets them stoked as far as like heavy guitar shit goes.
Right. How old are your kids?
I got an 18-year-old and a 13-year-old.
Okay. Yeah, so they're right in that kind of, and they listen to K-pop, huh?
Yeah, I mean, they both like, dude, it's weird because there's so much to know about that whole thing, but there's a lot of like, pretty big K-pop acts, I guess, that are popular with their like friend group at school. Additionally, because I know you have kids too. Like I was asking, I was like, how many of your friends listen to heavy metal at the school? And they're like, I mean, it's really only me because it's you.
Totally. They're like, yeah, there's a guy with the Slipknot shirt. Like a guy with
How old are yours?
16 and 14.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so it's very close. Like I've wondered, like for the amount of kids that I see, and by kids I mean like, fucking 15 to 20, like that are into metal. My kids don't know any of them, like they're just not around. But I don't know. Maybe that's okay.
I mean, I remember when I was a teenager, the vast majority of people at my school would have been into like hard rock or rap. You know what I mean? Like it would have been like Zeppelin or Sammy Hagar. So like when me and my buddy Jim Pittman got into like underground thrash and Exciter and Slayer and Metallica and all this shit. Like it, we were fucking on an island. We were a sandbar in the ocean. You know what I mean? Like nobody, they'd be like, that shit sucks. That's never going to go anywhere. You know, like, and we're like, we don't, this is just what we like, you know, like, so maybe it's not.
But when you were a teenager though, right? Like that's when all the Ruthie's In shit was going on for the most part, right?
Totally.
So there was like a faction of people in the Bay that were like definitely into thrash, but they weren't teenage. Like it was like the generation, like 5 years above teenagers. It was like young 20s, right around then.
Totally. It was, yeah, for sure. It would have been like, even like late teens, early 20s. And we were still, you know, I was 4 or 5 years below that, which doesn't sound like a lot, but it just was, you know, like it was a generation. But that's
I mean, 5 years is a fucking lot, especially in that age group, you know. That's rad. You brought up Fresno. Aren't you from Fresno at some point too? Like, didn't you live in Fresno at some point? I think Berkman told me that. No.
I lived in Fremont for a while.
Okay,
but that's just like a suburb in the South Bay of the Bay Area. But I got good memories from Fresno. I love Fresno, man. I don't know how you feel about Fresno. Like you get out of Fresno and like maybe you don't love it as much. But
well, I mean, it's definitely it's much more fortified than it was when I was growing up there. Like I think that, you know, like especially in the north end of town, they have big shopping centers, and it seems like there might even be somewhat of a music scene, you know, but like I don't know if you remember. I mean, I'm sure Machine Head at one point or another has played Selland Arena, but like really there weren't a whole lot of like, there was Selland Arena and then there were like a couple like, you know, 200 cap rooms. There wasn't like 1,000 cap room really in Fresno. So you didn't get to see a whole lot of, not a lot of big national acts that came through there. But,
I mean, I think to anybody who's never been to Fresno, Fresno's like Central Valley, California, about 3 hours south of the Bay Area, 3 hours north of LA, kind of middle of nowhere farmland, but it is a city. You know,
I kind of think of it as like the anus of California. It's like everyone, like LA and San Diego would be one butt cheek, and then like the Bay and above would be another. It's like everyone who couldn't really hack it in those areas heads to the Central Valley.
Right. And it's a pretty rough and tumble town. Like I've, you know, played there. Violence played there a bunch of times. Machine Head played there a bunch of times. And we were playing like VFW halls and, you know, just shit like that. And some crazy. We had our truck driver was from Fresno. He was a fucking lunatic.
Yeah. I mean, like
gangstery sometimes in a way.
Anywhere that you have a city and like very close to it, there's a big expanse of, you know, open area. I think you're going to find people making drugs and doing them, and also like getting into mischief, which is pretty much like what I always say that I'm from Fresno because that's where you go and buy groceries, you know what I mean? I actually grew up in a town 30 minutes north of Fresno called Yosemite Lakes Park, so it's in between, like it's like past Madera, but it's like between Yosemite Valley and Fresno. Right. And like, talk about nothing. There's like a community pool and a gas station and like, you know, so it was pretty much like growing up there. You could skateboard and you could play an instrument and kind of the rest of it get into mischief. And I know you could say the same thing about like any sort of major coastal city, but there's still just more to do in a coastal city, and certainly like more if your aim is to be a musician, more people to play with and stuff like that, you know. Yeah. So but yeah, I mean,
and that's some pretty rural, like, you know, kind of hunting area. Is that over by Lake Don Pedro? Am I kind of getting my geography wrong?
It is near Bass Lake. I don't
Okay.
know if you know where that is, which is like kind of like Oakhurst. That's where they filmed that John Candy movie, The Great Outdoors.
Okay.
They filmed that up there, but yeah, Don Pedro's like, I think
It's small town. It's small town USA.
northeast, yeah, up there, yeah, yeah. Um,
You're talking
it's,
about like where you live though sounds like small town USA. Like
oh yeah, big time, big fucking time. So yeah, I mean, like as far as playing an instrument and everything like that, I definitely got into playing music at a young age up there, but started getting into trouble. So I went to, got in enough trouble to where I ended up going to a county jail for like 6 weeks
oh
and
wow.
ended up getting
What'd you
out
go
of
to
there.
jail? What'd you go to jail for?
All right.
What are you getting in trouble with, Wes?
It wasn't drugs,
Not
but
drugs.
I was around a kid who, and I mean, by when I say drugs, I mean like, yeah, we were smoking weed, you know what I mean? And I guess in 2000, weed, especially in that area, was still considered an illicit drug. But
Right. You're
there
not
was
getting
this,
speed or anything.
fuck no. I mean, like, it was definitely all over the place. But like, for whatever reason, at a pretty young age, I was like pretty turned off by meth because I had a bunch of friends whose moms, were like, in their 40s and had really done themselves in physically with meth.
Wow.
So like I was always pretty turned off by it, but there I went to the story is the cliff notes of the story is like I was briefly trying to be a guy who sold weed and I was pretty shitty at it and
You were a shitty weed dealer.
yeah, big time. And I
Why were you
fronted.
shitty? Because you weren't making money, or why were you?
Well, I just
shitty?
did stuff like this where there was this kid who was a kind of a friend of mine, and I fronted him like an ounce of weed, and I told him he needed to pay me back by this time or whatever, and he couldn't, and he robbed a house
Oh.
to pay me back. Like, I mean, this is how dumb kids are. This is how dumb I was, and this is how dumb this kid was in the mountains. Like,
How old are you? How old are you at this point?
18.
Okay.
Just had turned 18.
You're out of high school. Are you out of high school yet?
Yeah, I was getting in trouble in high school, so I had to finish up early on homeschool. So by the time I was 17, I had finished early, and I was just kind of like floating around in the 555 or 559 area with like very little chance of getting employed and everything like that. And at the time, I'd already kind of developed a reputation with cops and shit in the area. So like, it's not like I could have gone and fucking gotten a job at the gas station or anything like that. Like everyone was like, "Oh, it's that kid."
What other kind of trouble are you getting into? Like, how do the cops know who you are?
I've been arrested for like dumb kid shit, like like there'd be like a public park that me and my friends would be in, and like we'd be getting stoned and like vandalizing shit or whatever, and you know what I mean?
Nothing big, yeah. Just
Yeah, no, nothing like truly criminal, but
Yeah.
just dumb kid shit. And
but enough to get on the cops' radar.
yes, big time. Tomfoolery to where they were just like this kid is gonna do dumber shit. We should probably, you know what I mean, keep an eye on him. But yeah, I got out of there.
So no, wait, your friend, go back. Your friend robs a house to pay you back the money for the weed that you fronted him, and what gets busted?
All right, so here's the worst part of it. So he calls me, and this is a day where because I needed to get the money, and he calls me, and he goes, "Dude, you got to come over here." And I went to, I drove from Fresno to his house, was like, 30, 45 minutes. And I get there and he goes, "Close your eyes." And he tells me to put out my hands, and he puts a fucking gun in my hand and then like starts showing, like handing me all these, like all this jewelry and all this stuff. And I was like, "What in the fuck is this? And what did you do?" And he's like, "I robbed that house up on Stetson." And I was like, and I started thinking, and I was like, "Which house? The greenhouse?" And he was like, "Yeah." He's like, "So I got very upset because it was a sheriff's house that he robbed.
Oh
He
fuck!
didn't just rob a regular house, he robbed a fucking cop's house. So like, so here's what happened. Um, we were uh dumb, but I was dumb enough to like, I wasn't dumb enough to know that what he just did screwed us. But like, I was broke, and we had some of this shit in my truck, bonehead move. And then he's like, dude, I could sell a piece of this like gold, like, because there was like this panned gold thing that he had, like that he had gotten from this jewelry he'd stolen. And it was like, something that he'd gotten out of a river. I don't know how big it was.
Oh right, I know what you're talking about.
But he was like, we go sell this at this pawn shop. And I'm just like, all right, whatever, because I needed gas in my car. And we're in there, and it's this old man with a police scanner, like straight up just like Central Valley right wing apple pie old man. Probably had a fucking gun there too, but like
Right.
he pulls out, so I'm thinking, okay, well, we can sell this gold. It's not like they can fucking identify some gold. And we're both like, I'm wearing like a set of etnies and like some cargo shorts. I mean, I look like a fucking Hesher, you know what I mean? Big time. And he looks like a fuck up kid too. And I'm turning around to walk out. Like, I think we got maybe $25 for this piece of gold. And I turn around to walk out, and I think he's behind me. And he goes,
You think your buddy's behind you?
yes, I think he's behind me, walking behind me. And I get to the door, and I realize that he's not. And I hear him go, hey, what do you think we'd be able to get for this? And he pulls out like a diamond earring. And I was like, oh no. Like, I mean, I knew what it looked like. I mean, it's like, what are these Hesher kids coming into this pawn shop in the fucking mountains trying to sell all this shit for? So, long story short, this old man put out called in our plates, and we were driving. When you're getting, like, when you're going up 41, you might not know this because you probably rarely go up 41, but there's where 41 comes into Fresno, there's a place called Avenue 12 that's like right there. And there's a big light. They had just put a light there. And there was a cop sitting at the intersection. And the light was red, and it turned green. And for some reason, I just knew. I was like, I know that this is for me. And I look in my rear, I like kind of closed my eyes for a second. I looked in the mirror, and this cop's just weaving in and out of traffic, and gets behind me, and it's a woman, and she pulls a gun on me, and she's like, this is the typical get on the fucking ground now type of thing. And I was like 18, and I'm like, oh, I was like, I looked over at him, I was like, you fucked us. I knew it. And
You fucked us.
so he's a minor.
Oh,
so they take him, and like, he's 17, I'm 18, just turned 18. I'm like maybe fucking 3 weeks after turning 18. And he goes, and they separate us, and they take me to county jail, and they take him to the juvenile hall. And what they did is interrogated him for like a while and made him cry and stuff like that. And they got him to admit in a very general way that he owed me money for drugs. And I mean, to rewind, this is 2000 in the fucking, like, the most red part of the state ever. Like, marijuana might as well have been ketamine. You know what I mean? Yeah. So he goes, and he tells him that. So I go to my first arraignment, after being in jail for like a week, and they hit me with my charges, which were felony receiving stolen property,
holy
felony
shit,
felony extortion, which was
extortion,
because they made it seem like because I extorted him for money or whatever. Like, but it was all horseshit. Like,
yeah.
And so I'm in there, and I think I had probably 6 different preliminary hearings. And at one point or another, they had done a pretty thorough investigation of the house, looked at my prints, took my shoes and everything like that, had sort of corroborated with people in the neighborhood on what they saw and like all this other shit. And they determined through deductive reasoning, like, that I didn't have anything to do with this house getting robbed, and fucking didn't know it was going to get robbed and all kinds of shit. So after about 6 weeks of being in there, they gave me a plea deal, which was 2 years of informal probation. You know what that means, where it's basically like, if you fucking speed, you're going to jail again,
Right.
And I think it was like a fine of like $800. And so I got out, and while I was in jail, I kind of sat there and I was like, man, I know that if I stay around here, I'm just going to get in trouble again. So I should probably try to figure out something to do. And that's where like the whole idea of joining the military came in. And he gets out of juvie. I saw him like one time before I ended up going in the military, but he got fucking nailed. I mean, I guess rightfully so. Like he robbed a fucking house, a cop's house. So he got like something crazy, like for the time, like an $18,000 fine in 2001. That was a lot of money. And then he had like a real probation officer for like years, getting piss tested, all kinds of shit. I think he ended up having to leave the state, or his parents ended up having to sell their house because it just, So I was like, man, I got to get out of here. So I brought it up to my dad at the time. I was like, I'm thinking of joining the military. And being like that, I'm sure he was pretty ready to have me out of the house anyway. He took me to a recruiter station. And like, I got out of jail in January of 2000, and I was in boot camp by February 20th of 2001.
What was jail like? What was jail like in this? Are you in Fresno County, or are you in like?
It was Madera County, so it was like fucking 30 hours or 30 minutes north of there. I mean, full of people who were in there for meth. I would say the bulk of the people that were in there was for meth, and like I was definitely the youngest guy. It was definitely.
Are you scared shitless at this point?
No, to be honest with you, everyone was pretty cool. I mean, there were a couple like skirmishes and stuff in there, but like, no one was ever really like, I never felt like anyone was trying to fuck with me in there and everything like that. I mean, perhaps if I'd stayed in there longer, maybe that would have happened. Right. But I think pretty much all of these dudes just looked at me like, oh, there's a young ass fucking kid. He just turned 18 years old and he's not in here for drugs or anything. Like, probably just leave him alone. He's probably gonna, you know what I mean? Like it was pretty simple, I think. But yeah, was in boot camp by fucking February of 2001. So yeah, right at the end of 2000 when all this happened, and then I got out of there. And also, I mean, truth be told, I always wanted to I knew as soon as I could, I was going to get out of Fresno. It was just, the military was the easiest way because I didn't have any money. My parents, were a middle-class family. They didn't have like a bunch of money to bequeath to me to get me out of there. And at the time, I'm sure wouldn't have done it even if they had it, so not like I deserved it. I was fucking up, so.
Were your parents still together at that point?
Yes. They're still together now.
Wow, that's awesome. That's amazing. You said, because you said my dad was ready to get, I was just asking because of that.
Oh, I guess I just meant that like, your dad's like the guy who's more kind of gonna
ready to
yell at you and be stern with you. You know what I mean? So he was just like, as soon as I brought it up, because he was probably, if I think about it, was probably thinking about like, Jesus Christ, what am I gonna do with him? You know what I mean?
Because like if you think about like in the big picture, like you're not really fucking up that bad, but I'm sure for small town, Yosemite or whatever the name of the city is.
Yeah, big time.
I mean, it's a nightmare.
Yeah. I mean, again, if you had gone and surveyed most of my friends' parents at the time, they probably would have said like, yeah, he's gonna grow up to get in trouble. And that also being said, I was one of hundreds of kids up there that were getting in varying degrees of trouble. So I mean, I think having a broad view of that and realizing that I probably should get out of there was what made me make a pretty, I guess, hasty decision. And I knew that joining the military would have derailed any of my plans for starting a band or playing with some band at the time, but at the time that was so fucking like hypothetical as it was, because in Fresno, like I said, I didn't know anyone in a band. It wasn't like I knew anyone who kind of understood how it works, and like didn't know anybody really who was playing metal. So it was just like, well, I might as well just get the fuck out of here anyway and try to like figure out what I'm gonna do. And
are you do you have a girlfriend at this point? Like, are you like, I'm joining the military, babe? That's it. I'll see.
Kind of very like casually.
Does selling weed in small town California get you girls?
Well, no, definitely not. But there was a girl who there was a girl that I was talking to right as I joined the military that I very foolishly married and had a kid with very quickly, like first 2 years of being in the military.
That you met before you went in the military?
Yes, but she was like not from Course Gold. She was from that shithole Los Banos that's like in between Chowchilla and like the South Bay.
I've heard it. Yeah.
It's just like it's pretty much like a truck stop town, but there isn't like a truck stop. You know what's weird?
Yes, I know what you're talking about. I know exactly what you're talking about.
yeah. That's pretty much what it was. But yeah, I mean, so yeah, I complicated my life pretty quickly, like in a pretty short period of time. And maybe I did that because I wanted to sort of prove to my parents or prove to myself, like, yeah, I'm not fucking up anymore. So I'm going to make all these big life decisions and, see them through. And,
so you got married at 18?
19.
19. Okay.
After my first deployment.
You had sex before then?
Had I had sex before I went in the military? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Which is another like dumb part of it. Like, yeah, I married the first girl that I ever had sex with. Yeah, that's I mean,
so you guys
and I'm only talking about this right now because like if you're gonna do these podcasts, you better fucking just put your dick and balls on the table and let everyone chop them off if they're gonna. But like,
dude, I'm so I gotta say, you were a really hard person to research because all there is on you is like gear interviews. Like it's you.
Oh, really?
Gear. I was just like, all right, like I want to know about this dude. Like,
yeah. Well, I guess for the most part, I've kept a lot of this shit like at the hip because it just didn't really, probably at one point or another, I wouldn't have been comfortable to talk about a lot of this stuff. And then also like, I just didn't feel that what I was doing warranted me telling the story as detailed as I should or I am right now. So
yeah. No, I appreciate it because I've heard you tell a couple of little stories like, I got in trouble, then I joined the military, so I kind of
I don't think something. This is a no fucking regrets exclusive. I don't think I've told that story in that level of depth ever. The whole like getting busted for being a shitty weed dealer thing.
and then marrying the first girl you ever had sex with.
Yeah, bonehead move. And I'm only saying this because like I know there's potentially some younger cats right now who are like, maybe in similar positions. Don't do that. Don't
do any of the things Wes just.
Yeah. Any of the things I've talked about for the last 30 minutes, don't do those things. But yeah, I got married when I was 19. I'll try to do this quickly, but you go to boot camp and you're there for 3 months.
Yep.
And then you go to
in the Navy.
Yeah. So that was another part of it. So the recruiter, at first I was going to be a machinist mate on a submarine, which is like, requires a clearance because you're working with like a steam plant, which is like a nuclear reactor. It's like you're using like nuclear rods and nuclear isotopes to heat water to make a steam plant engine and everything. So it's like when you do a clearance, it's costly. I think at the time what I heard, it was like 10 or 15 grand to do a clearance, and it's very in depth. It takes like a year or 18 months. They go and like they They talk to everyone in your hometown and all kinds of stuff. They do a full, thorough cavity search on your life, basically. And
I mean, probably because like when you go on a submarine, like people are prone to snapping because they don't see, you know, the sun, or they're trapped in these vessels for, you know, months at a time, right?
oh, I'm sure that that's a part of it, but mostly that you're working with a certain type of nuclear reactor that they would not want you get a clearance to work with them because they don't want someone with loose lips to go and like leak all the secrets about the reactor and everything.
Gotcha.
So when I was there, the recruiter station was in Clovis. You know where Clovis is? It's like it's like the people in Fresno who think they're rich, you know, like the people who like make like 180 grand a year. Those ones. But there's where was I? Oh, I went there and they gave me that job at first, and then they were like, "Hey, buddy, you know, we realize you're probably not you're not gonna get this job because your records are gonna hit Fresno County by the time this clearance is in, you know, going on. So you're gonna look like a big old liar, and we're gonna look like big old liars. So what do you think of this job, equipment operator, EO? You go in the CB battalions, and you're gonna operate heavy equipment and shoot guns and build camps and stuff." And I was like, yeah, sure. I mean, like I said, mid-January to February 20th, this was just head spinning, like, okay, yeah, I'll do that. Okay, yeah, I'll sign this. You know, like, and then I was there. So last minute, that was when I ended up deciding. And at this time, you know, I didn't really know anything about the CBs or the CB battalions. And for reference, the CBs is like this really small part of the Navy. I think it's 8,000 deep. And for reference, I think there's like 6,000 people on an aircraft carrier, and there's many aircraft carriers. So like, it's a pretty small part of the Navy. But you go and
CBs.
Yeah, SEABEES.
Okay.
Gotcha. So you go and you usually attach to Marine Corps battalions, and you go and build shit. You know what I mean? Like, that's what you do. Because I don't know if you noticed, most people don't know this, but if you look at the seal for the Marine Corps, it says Department of the Navy on the top of it. Like, while they are definitely their own pedigree, it's basically like
a division of the Marines, or a division of the Navy, I should say.
Yes. I mean, it's like, I'm trying to think of an example. It's like fucking Walmart and Sam's Club. You know what I mean? Right, it's like the same shit. But so yeah, you go to boot camp in Chicago, and then after that you go to your A school. So I went to Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri, which is where it's an Army base, but that's where they did the EOA school. I think I was there for 4 months, and then you go to your first battalion, which mine was in Oxnard in Port Hueneme, which is like you know, kind of 45 minutes north of the valley.
Yep, SoCal.
Yeah. And
is this your first time going out of California, like going to Missouri, going to Chicago?
I believe so. Yeah, I think I might have gone to fucking like a family's thing in like New Mexico, you know what I mean? But that was like a hop, skip, and a jump. It was the first time that I'd been in a different real time zone. You know what I mean?
That's got to have been pretty exciting for, you know, for some things.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely like. I was eager to get out of the house because I mean, my parents, our relationship was beyond strained, and like you said, I mean, I'm glad you said it, Robb Flynn. You were like, you're fucking up, but you weren't fucking up that bad. You know, I wish you could tell my parents that. I might have you call them and leave them a voice message. But I was eager to go out and just be a adult man and fucking bump my head and make mistakes and figure it out. I mean, and for reference, like both my mother and father are like deeply, you know, religious brand of folk, so I wasn't allowed to have a lot of the records that I wanted to have when I was growing up. I had to borrow them, hide them,
Oh, geez.
borrow them again. You know what I mean? So like, I was just stoked to get out of there and be able to go and buy fucking, like a Cannibal Corpse record and not have it
What
get
records
taken
were
away from me.
taboo in your house?
Oh, dude. I mean, where do you want to start? I remember I was in 5th grade, and that was when you remember those like BMG things where you'd like pay $1 and you'd get like 10 CDs and
Yes.
shit. So like I got like a few Stone Temple Pilots records. I got Super Unknown. I got Nevermind and In Utero. I got the first Blue Weezer record, and I think I got
that's some good grunge right there.
I think I got Dirt as well. So like that was like my first shit that got me into guitar were those
God.
records.
That's a fucking great starting point, man. Holy smokes.
Yeah, and I mean I just did it.
That's like every great grunge record, like boom, right in your lap.
Yeah. And my mom became, somewhat aware of like, because this was like, right around the time that Nirvana had like really sort of had like a legitimate Beatlemania. You know what I mean? So fucking people like my mom and my grandma knew who they were. So when he died, and finding out the methods and circumstances under which he died, she started to like kind of look into the music, and like, like any other white evangelical mother that was growing up in the Central Valley at that time, she was not having it. So like I couldn't have In Utero or Nevermind or any of that shit. So like having any real heavy metal in the house was out of the fucking question. I had to hide it like crazy. Like I'm not even shitting you. I don't think I've ever said this before, but there was a time where I used to have this like shitty plastic Vons bag, and I would like
A what?
like a Vons, like grocery
Vons
bag.
groceries.
Yeah. And I had like Heartwork and like Far Beyond Driven and all these records that I loved, and I I would hide them and bury them in this plastic bag in this tree, behind this tree in my backyard, because like because my mom would routinely just go through my room and just rip it apart and take all my shit, where I was like, I gotta go hide the goods, man. But
the warden's coming in.
oh yeah, straight up. So like you can imagine my relief to some degree in getting out of the house and just being able to go and be like, whoa, this is what it's like to just be able to kind of like do whatever you want. Like it was a level of freedom that I hadn't really ever had. But also I guess a level of discipline that I didn't ever have before,
right.
the military. So,
but you didn't have to hide your Carcass records anymore.
no, I could have them in my like binder thing on my front seat in my car, and it was like no one was going to take them from me. I was real happy about it.
Yeah. Pretty good.
Yeah.
I mean that's pretty strict, like I had my parents were pretty strict with some stuff, but like that's pretty strict.
Did you, correct me if I'm wrong, but you said that your parents adopted you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Were they real, like, were they strict with their own kids like they were with you? Did you kind of come into like a certain, like, I mean, by their own kids, I don't mean that, I mean, you're their kid too, but I'm just saying like their biological kids, were you coming into like a, like,
no, they couldn't have kids. So
okay.
They tried. So they got me, and they had like, they were interracial couple, and so there was, which back then was not that weird for the Bay Area, but it was still weird. My mom's really dark skinned, like most people think she's black, and or thought she was black, and so it was just, they kind of feigned. I think they wanted to be religious. Like it looked good to be religious, but they never really followed through on like the religion part of it. And my dad was kind of a hippie, so like they were definitely at, like, he was smoking, like when I was 5, he was like smoking weed all the time. He grew his hair out, like big beard, and he's like, he went and started protesting the Vietnam War. He got out of the military and then went right into protesting the Vietnam War.
Oh no shit.
Marching in the, Martin Luther King things, And so it was a pretty interesting, my mom, who's, family's super Mexican Catholic. And then my dad, who's like kind of this, trained in the military, was in the military for a while, but then like comes out and becomes this like protester, is very, very anti, what's going on. And, I saw this kind of, different side of things, and that it was okay to see, it was okay to be this one way and then protest against that thing that you were just a part of. And, so my mom would have been like, my mom was probably more the disciplinarian than my dad was, like you were talking about how like, my dad would get sick of me or whatever, but my dad, like mom would like just pots and pans and wooden spoons and belts and like you'd get hit with all that shit. My dad would be the worst because like my mom's thing would be over in like 60 seconds. My dad would sit me down and talk to me for like 90 minutes. I was like,
yeah. Fuck. I think that like that era too, and I mean like you have to. It's important as like. As non-important and as milquetoast as it seems, you have to sort of view these types of things with like the lens of a child being in a certain era. Like I'm like when you just told me that story, like I visually like I thought of you as being like a child in the 70s and like this kind of Technicolor Dreamcoat sort of like filter over it and having like Brady Bunch hair and like having a stern dad who was like a former vet and everything like that. You had to install those types of things for like the type of kid that was going on, like that was being reared in an era. And then you kind of go like, oh, that's how this dude ended up being in a metal band. You know what I mean? like, as I think about it too, and for what it's worth, my mom was like the arbiter of the apocalypse for me. She was I mean, I should have mentioned that she was the most stern. I mean, yes, she was definitely like wooden spoons and like slapping and all that other stuff. Like, I mean, she's a stern woman, but like my dad had this, it was like when I was in trouble with him is when I knew that it was like, oh, it was, I'd hit DEFCON 5, you know what I mean? So, when I think that I mentioned that I wanted to join the military, it appealed to their sensibilities of being like a right-wing family in the area. And they were just like, fuck yeah, we get to tell all of our friends that our kid's in the fucking military. He's not a fuck up anymore and all this other stuff. And, like, I think about the transition, not that this had anything to do with me growing up in the fucking mountains in California, but like 99 into 2000, you had like, just culturally speaking, like Woodstock 99 and all of the sort of like, you know, hedonism that went on there, and like nu metal had basically like the 80s came back for a minute, you know what I mean? And it was like these gigantic fucking sort of like decadent shows, sort of like end of Clinton era, like end of the era where like those families in the 90s were, you know, making 30 grand a year and were homeowners and shit like that. Right. Like that completely changed like right into that, you know, 2000, 2001 era. So yeah, I mean, that segues into, I got out of A school and got into Port Hueneme, which is the base I was stationed out of when I wasn't deployed. And you had to go through cert training, which is where you like qualify on different guns and, you know, like,
okay,
get ready to go into like, you qualify on like big, like M16 and then like big crew serve weapons, like 240 Golfs and Mod Deuces and stuff. And then I go to
those are like, what are those?
They're just
like
big crew serve weapons are basically ones that you're not running around without, you know, like they're ones that are either mounted on a Humvee or some sort of technical thing, or like you're in a pit guarding a camp and like you're fucking, you know, got like a ghillie suit on and shit, and you got this giant fucking gun and everything, you know, like, and I qualified on a Mark 19, which is like a grenade launcher. It's like a 40 millimeter grenade launcher.
Nice.
So, they, right as I'm about to join my battalion, there's like this chow hall, like the galley that's in between all the barracks. And I go in there one morning, and I mean, to the degree that I could understand it as an 18-year-old kid who fucking knew nothing about the world really, because I grew up in the mountains, like, I see, you know, the World Trade Center on fire and everything. And
You're already in the military when 9/11 happens.
oh yeah, big time. January of
Right.
February
You're
2001.
9 months into it. You're
Yeah,
September. Gotcha. Okay.
And I remember I was just talking to somebody about this, but like because I was like real into that first wave of like Fat Records punk, like No Effects, Propaganda, Lagwagon, and all that other shit. I got into like, because of Propaganda, I got into those Noam Chomsky books. So like I knew kind of about like Donald Rumsfeld's involvement with like the Bin Laden family and sort of like the Cold War like tie to that and everything. But again, like from an 18-year-old kid who like plays guitar and gets busted for being a shitty weed dealer's perspective. You know what I mean? Like I definitely didn't have the life experience to sort of put fucking to piece all these things together at the time. But I remember sitting there and watching the second plane hit and like kind of just going like, man, wonder if this has anything to do with like the whole like Al Qaeda and like Rumsfeld thing. And I remember within like 7 minutes, like they started talking about those two things on the news. And I remember being like, one of my friends sitting there going like, what the fuck? How did you like call that and everything? I was like, I don't know. I'm just like, I read this book when I was like 16 years old because I liked this band and fucking, little did I know that would be kind of like a military campaign in another country, namely Afghanistan, but then Iraq for like the next quarter of a century, you know, like, but it was just, I'm just setting the stage right there. Like for, I guess, anyone who's listening, who isn't, you know, my age or older, it's like, yeah, you went from like, the 90s, which was like this, I don't know, like a beautiful time in my opinion, to being like, oh, here we go. like in the beginning of the next decade. So
did you immediately deploy to there?
I immediately deployed to Rota, Spain, which was a jump off point for like us going to different places like Southwest Asia and stuff like that. Okay. But Rota, Spain was like a routine training site. So like there's a few routine training sites in the NCF, Naval Construction Force thing, where you go and you go build shit. So like basically they grade you. There's like a battalion and there's a regiment and a brigade, and you go and build shit in these different places, and they grade you on how well you've done and determine whether or not you'd be worth a fuck sending to a real campaign.
Okay, you know? Gotcha.
So when I was there,
this is your first time ever leaving the country.
Yeah, definitely the first time leaving the country. Definitely my first time in Europe. So I went.
Spain's pretty cool.
Yeah, it was like the southern coast of Spain, like kind of, I guess, what most Spaniards would consider the country part. You know what I mean? Andalusia. It's like near Jerez and all that other stuff. And I went there, and a detachment from our battalion went to Gitmo, which like that was the beginning of Guantanamo Bay. So like there's a camp called Camp X-Ray where like they built all of those very early detention facilities, which are almost like, they look like dog kennels. My battalion built all those.
This was prior to Guantanamo.
This is Guantanamo Bay, that like US had already leased the land from Cuba and everything like that. But like the detention facilities that are there now, this is just for anyone who's listening and for you, if you care. Here's how it usually works. The government, like employees, like as far as the military is concerned, you are considered like the cheap contingency shit labor, and they send you over there to like do a thing that is going to temporarily do a thing. And then they send in government contractors to do the actual thing.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
That's how it fucking always worked when I was in. So like Kellogg, Brown and Root, which is like under that big defense conglomerate, United Defense, that like Halliburton, fucking all these big telecommunications companies and shit. It's all under that umbrella. So like my battalion went in there and built these early detention facilities for these, which I don't know that anyone knew it at the time was going to.
You went from Spain to Guantanamo?
I'm saying my battalion had a detachment that went from there because we were going to go to Afghanistan, but they ended up sending up in a bunch of ops people first. But just as a side note, they sent a detachment from NMCB3 to go build all these detention facilities in Guantanamo Bay. And then shortly after that, the big dog government contractors came in and built all this place, like the prison that's currently there that all these people are in now. That's what they built. And then, so how it works is you do, at the time you do 7 months deployed and 9 months at home. But if you're an equipment operator, because you got to do a field exercise and all this other shit, it was really like 6 months at home because I'd be hauling shit back and forth to this camp called Fort Hunter Liggett. That's like up the 101. So, all right, I get back from Spain, 7 months in Spain. I get back in the beginning of 2002.
So what's it like in Spain? Do you see Spain? Are you just kind of in the remote area? Or are you just kind of
pretty much just working? I did paving the entire time that I was there.
So you never was able to go into town or hang out or?
No, I've seen more of Spain touring than I saw when I was in the military. So home port, field exercise, home for 6 months, and then I went to Japan for a routine training deployment. So I went to Sasebo, Japan.
Is that one of the islands?
It's like southern mainland Japan. Like, so you have like Okinawa, and then Japan's like right here, and then you basically like it's the southern end of it. Then
did you end up on Okinawa?
Yeah, for like a week grand total.
Oh yeah.
Like before, because I was on a detachment that went to Sasebo.
Did you go to the brothel in Okinawa?
No, I didn't go to the brothel in Okinawa, but I had friends that went to the brothel in Spain a lot. Like, dude, like I said, I was getting ready to marry this girl, so I was like being all, good and like, trying not to be a pig. But there's a whorehouse called Club 96 that is in Spain that a bunch of people went to. But yeah, I mean, generally, pretty much anywhere outside of a military base, there's going to be whores. And I don't know if you can say that in 2021 without getting in trouble. Sex workers and tattoo parlors and bars. You'll find those things outside of it.
I just bought some flooring for my house, and I'm sitting there just chopping it up with the guy. And it's kind of this older black dude, super cool, like the coolest dude, like just funny as fuck. And like, we're just sitting there talking in the floor store, and then he starts telling me, he gets all like whispery. He's like, I tell you what, man, when I was back when I was 17, when we were stationed on Okinawa, oh my God, the whorehouse is there, the brothel's there. We're just like, he's just going on and on. Like, this girl would do this thing where she stuck these pearls down my pee hole, and oh my God, I was like, it was the funniest. So you said Okinawa, and I was like, Okinawa. Like, it's just instantly. This was a couple of days ago when this dude told me this story. So,
oh yeah, I mean, yeah, there's definitely it's definitely part of the experience. I think the whore thing or whorehouse thing,
But you didn't go, not in Japan.
I did not go. No. So Japan, 7 months, came home, and I had my first son. So I was 20 years old. So I guess this was like June or July of 2003. Then I went to Guam for another routine training thing, 7 months there, then home for 6. And then I went to Iraq for 7 months. And then right after I got back from Iraq is when I transferred to a shore duty in San Diego. So like, that's what happens. That's another thing. Like, so when you enlist, you usually get like a 4 or 5 year enlistment where you're in a C or a deployable command, right? So you're going to deploy 4 or 5 times in a 4 or 5 years period, and then you're eligible to take orders to a shore duty that basically is a job where you don't deploy, that um, kind of behaves more like a normal job than anything. And
Okay.
I did this because at the time my then wife uh, hadn't worked and she wanted to go to school to be a dental hygienist, and I was the sole income, and we, like, we needed health insurance, we needed all this other shit. So like when I re-enlisted, I did it begrudgingly. You know what I mean? It wasn't like I wanted to spend more time in the military, but it was more that I had, you know, had a fucking kid and I had to pay for it. So, it was the easiest way to do it. And, the healthcare stuff. And in that time frame too, I ended up having my second kid while I was in San Diego.
So this is after Iraq.
Yeah.
So you said around 2003 you're in Iraq? Like
2005 to 2006.
Okay, so that's kind of like when everything's kind of, I mean, I guess mission accomplished had been already said at that point, but it was still kind of going on at that point, right?
Yeah. I just did Doc's podcast and he asked me a bunch about this. So I'm going to try to say everything that you asked me. I'm going to try to not sound like I'm just repeating the exact same shit. I'd like to tell a different story. I know, but like, yeah, if you were in Iraq from 2003 to the invasion to probably like 2008, it was all pretty hot area. You know what I mean? Like there wasn't an organized military or insurgency over there at that time, but like at this point, I mean, if you were in a camp, you were gonna get mortared all the time. If you were convoying, which is I was doing, you're gonna get shot at when you go. Like it wasn't every place, but every time we would pass through like Ramadi or Tukadim, you would get shot at, and likely these were just motherfuckers who lived there and were pissed off that you were there. And I mean, like, I think about this too. I try to explain this to people. Like, imagine all of a sudden you're walking down the street in your hometown. There's a foreign military there, and you're going to the fucking 7-Eleven, or you're driving somewhere in the middle of the night in your country that you've lived in forever, and some Humvee with a fucking crew serve weapon on it starts firing warning shots at you because you're getting too close to their convoy, and they take you and zip tie your hands behind your fucking back and put you on the side of the road and search your car and everything like that. You would hate these motherfuckers too, and you would take every chance you got. You would launch a mortar at them, or
you're saying that's what the U.S. was doing to a lot of people. Yeah,
I mean, these are
just regular people. These aren't Al Qaeda. This is like,
no, these are just people that, like, okay, and that's another story that I should kind of paint. So when I was there, they had a curfew on their driving in Baghdad. So I convoyed up from a base called Ali Al Salim, which is in Kuwait, and we had leased these big rock dump trailers from this contractor there in Kuwait because I still don't even know what we were doing this for. Apparently it was part of some op, but like I was hauling gravel and sand to this camp called Al Assad for fucking 7 months straight. Like every night hauling gravel and sand. You'd think, why do you need that in the desert? Well, you need a certain kind of sand to make concrete, I guess. And like they were building something out there, and it was all, like at need to know basis. So that's what I did. I convoyed every night, and I have an M16 and a radio, like a PRC 119.
By yourself.
You have an A driver.
Okay.
But I'm in a 20-ton international tractor trailer hauling this big rock dump full of shit, and I have a gun. But if I ever had to use a gun, like my gun, I'd be dead anyway. We have we had 6 Humvees in the convoys that had bigger guns on, like the crew serve weapons I was talking about, like 240 Golf and like the M2 and like a Mark 19. So these were like the dudes, the gunners that were gonna be, shooting back if we ever got shot at, And most times that we ever got shot at, they would just tell us to drive through it. No shit.
I mean, like, would bullets go through your windshield? Like bullets would go through
you have these hardened windows, like they have like these like this armored glass windows. And I had shit hit my cab. I never had anything hit like an actual like my passenger side window or anything like that. I did have I had 3 different convoys that I was on where an IED went like off on a truck, and one of them happened on a truck that was right behind me. That was probably the closest that I ever got to like other than being shot at or being more like running from mortars into camp that I ever got to being like getting super fucked up. The guys that were in that truck, they were 2 reservists and they were just about to go home. Like we were turning over with them, and like I was trying to say, these are just at this point local people who are just like, fuck these guys, you know what I mean? And they would get mortars, like a 155 round, they'd pull it out of a casing, and then they would make some sort of like detonation like device. It buried under the road, and there's shit all over the fucking roads. There's trash. So like, you know, if you run over a piece of hose, you're none the wiser to whether or not it's some sort of thing to ignite something or not, right? But like this one particularly, and this is only what they told us. I mean, like, you know, when the EOD guys went out there and like checked everything out after this truck got hit, but they took like those like big camping batteries and like wired it up to that, and then took like 2 hacksaw blades and put a couple pieces of wood in between them and put them in some piece of hose or trash that was on the side of the road. And then that's wired up to this 155 round. And then you run over this piece of trash, and then these 2 like pieces of wood break, and then you have 2 metal contacts touch, and then it like
fires
sets off the 155 round, and it happened. Like
these dudes lived. These dudes died.
These dudes lived. I'm pretty sure they ended up getting Purple Hearts, but they lived. It was right behind me, and they were in a 15-ton, and like those ones had automatic transmissions, so they're like the big bell housing that was, you can see like the like in between passenger side and driver side, there's like a big sort of like bell housing in there.
Yes.
It blew that between their heads, and one of the dudes got a broken arm and shit like from it. Like they both were really, really lucky. But I mean, yeah, that was like, I don't know, 15 feet behind me. I still don't know why I didn't run under that stuff. But I mean, yeah, like I wasn't going and kicking down doors and running into people's house. I wasn't infantry. I was in the role of support always while I was in the military. Like I wasn't like, yeah, the CBs is kind of like this wannabe Marines thing where they go and like, you know, you run every morning and you gotta fucking sing cadence and you go and shoot guns and you go and do field exercises and shit. But like, dude, like I wasn't some sort of like highly trained combat dude. I could shoot guns, you know what I mean? I had to qualify guns on stuff like that, but my job was to be a fucking equipment operator, you know, and that's what I did. So like because of that, I wouldn't say my or any guys on the convoy teams I was on, I wouldn't say our experiences were like unique in 2005 in Iraq, because I mean, dude, that was just like every single day you had mortars incoming into camp.
That must have been pretty scary shit, having mortars coming in. I mean, middle of the night.
Yeah, a lot of middle of the night, pretty much, or like real early in the morning.
Yeah, I mean, it's got to be jarring, you know, just to get woken up by.
Yeah, there was, dude. They like, this is something that I still have like like one of the things I still have like a weird thing with, but there's this camp, they name all these roads different things in country, you know what I mean? So it's like MSR Mobile, like main supply route mobile, like they'll use like words from the phonetic alphabet to, you know, like for it, so it's this, so it sounds like this, you know, like someone can hear it over a bad radio thing. So there's this road that would take us up to Al Assad. That was like this Republican Guard air base that we'd taken over, and that's where I was taking shit all the time. And this was that road that we'd get hit on all the time called ASR uranium. But we had a tire blowout on my truck one time, and like a full rock dump full of shit, and we could have repaired the tire, but the command back in Fallujah didn't want us to dump the gravel, so we sat on the road for fucking 12 hours, and it was like real sketch, like in pretty much like near like some of the hottest spots in Iraq at the time. Like we're sitting on the side of the road, and there's like local people, like kind of like you could see them on this bridge kind of counting the amount of trucks in our convoy and getting on their phones and shit. And I was like, oh, this is going to be like a rough day. So finally they let us dump the gravel, and they took this truck to Ramadi to get like fixed. And me and this dude who was kind of newer at the time, they put us in this transient berthing in Ramadi, which was like full of these like
A what?
it's basically like where they would just put overflow people that were staying there, you know.
Mm.
And there was nobody,
military people, like overflow
Yeah.
people. Yeah.
It was just this big thing covered in these big HESCO barriers, which is like these canvas bags that are full of sand, if you know, like so shrapnel doesn't blow into the room and stuff like that. But there's this one, they were full of like all these, like, I'm sure, you know, these big, like, you know, some government contract, like Oshkosh metal bunk bed frames, just hundreds of them in this fucking like concrete, like domed room. And like we'd been up for like 36 hours. So we just went in there and crashed. And like, I woke up to a bunch of incoming like that morning, and it was all hitting like right. I mean, luckily there were HESCO barriers all over this thing, but it was hitting all right outside of our thing. And I woke up to like hundreds of, like, I shouldn't say hundreds, over 100 of these metal bunk beds going like shaking across the floor because of these mortars that were coming in every once in a while. Like, I mean, dude, yeah, I would be a goddamn liar if I said that I haven't had all kinds of problems that I came back from Iraq, but it took me a long time to get to them because I used to just kind of throw it off. Like I wasn't going and kicking indoors. Like, you know what I mean? Like I wasn't going and like shooting people in the face. Like I was just in the role of support. But like, I guess for being in the role of support in 2005 and 2006, it was still pretty heavy, like, you know, in hindsight. And I guess it took me kind of like reconnecting with friends later that I was in battalion with that had gone into inpatient programs and certain things like that, where I was like hearing other people having the same sorts of problems, where I was like, oh wow, I guess like this is just like a different thing, and it's not something for me to just write off because I wasn't, you know, I wasn't jumping out of a truck and kicking down someone's door and shooting them in the face, you know.
Yeah, I mean, you're saying you had PTSD?
Yeah, I have a medical diagnosis of PTSD in my military record, which is rare because they usually medically separate you for it. But yeah, pretty much since, yeah, I started getting on medication for PTSD when I was about a year after I got back from Iraq. So like mid 2007. And like I said, it took me a while to like, I guess, heed any notion of like, or like understand, I guess, what was going on. I mean, yeah, dude, I was a 23-year-old young man. So like I didn't really, and also had a fucking family, you know, so I didn't like, I felt like this immense pressure to just like, the financial pressure of being the sole income in a family to just like keep working. But I started getting in trouble. I was living in Imperial Beach, and I was getting in fights down there all the time, and like a lot of just different like weird behaviors associated with risk. And then I was waking up. I don't know if you have any experience with sleep paralysis, you know what I mean, where you're kind of like awake, like you're conscious but you can't move your body type of thing.
For sure.
I was having shit like that, but like my jaw was completely locked, and I was like in this weird like state of consciousness where I couldn't like wake myself up, you know what I mean? And I'd have to like, I remember I would have to, this is the only way that I've been able to do this whenever it happens, is I have to like kind of try to make myself yell, which probably sounds really stupid. It probably sounds like, you know what I mean? But like to try to wake my body up, you know?
Right. Right.
But yeah, I was just a lot of shit like with stuff with auditory sort of hallucinations, and then having like a lot of
Auditory?
weird,
Oh, you mean like
yeah, hearing shit.
Okay.
Yeah. And then a lot of like, because I was driving all the time, like swerving to avoid trash and just being tense, and like having a lot of like, I don't know, like just being real easy to kind of pop off. And then after that,
I mean, I can't imagine you're 23 years old. You just went through fucking crazy, super intense life experience that most people ever, and then you got to go home and it's like you're normal again. You probably can't talk about much of this stuff, you know?
Yeah,
or maybe at 23, you probably don't want to talk about it, you know? So like you just shove it down like every dude does, like just shove it down.
Yeah. And I mean, I think that, like I said, it turned from like being like real, just like impulsive and like reckless and risk taking, and also getting into like a lot of shit, and then just like just a lot of tension, to like hitting this fucking like debilitating depression, and then that being punctuated by the stuff that I didn't necessarily understand about the time about medication, you know, because like I definitely think that medication has been and is necessary for me, but it fucks you up hormonally, where you put on weight, you know, at a real rapid pace. And like, I'm not saying that the medication puts the shitty food in your mouth, but it makes you put it on real fast, and it makes you put it on in like makes you put it on like a woman. And I'm not saying like I'm not disparaging, but you put it on your ass, you put it on your chest, you put it on in these weird places like in your anatomy that are make you feel shittier about yourself. You know what I mean? And like, so yeah, I mean, dude, the weight thing just turned into a battle for a long time too. And
How are you and your wife getting along at this point?
I mean, we always kind of had a shitty marriage, to be honest with you. Like we're young,
Barely even seeing each other.
yeah, I mean, like, I think at the time, there's a lot that I could say about that situation, maybe when my kids are grown up, you know what I mean? That I probably shouldn't say now, but like, yeah, we always had it was always a toxic relationship, and we spent the bulk of our marriage apart, deployed or whatever. So I'd say our marriage was always a piece of shit, but it became further and further a piece of shit as time went on.
When do you split up with her? Right around this time?
So 2009, I get out.
Oh, you last a while after
So
that.
2009, I get out of the Navy, and at this time I got my youngest son too, and he was born in 2008, so he's a little over a year old. And
But you've been kind of home around California for a while at this point.
yeah, I was in San Diego on that shore duty. So from 06 to 09, I was in San Diego, and then moved back up to the Bay Area, actually Mountain View. I lived in Mountain View for like, I got out of the Navy and started just doing all the wrong things, not exercising. And like, this is right as Obama came into office. And I don't know if you remember this, but like, he sent out an official letter to local law enforcement to lay off the dispensaries. And in '08, and this is what in my opinion, this is what like kicked off the marijuana movement in the United States at that time. This is like 2009. Because I don't know if you remember this, but there were dispensaries opening in San Fran and Oakland, and people were, going there and smoking weed outside and everything, and cops would go and fuck with them and take all their shit and everything. So I got out and I was like, man, this is awesome. I get to smoke weed. And like, I was, just not taking care of myself, not going to I was going
a lot. Are you boozing a lot at this point?
I had actually kind of quit boozing, but yeah, booze had been a big part of my life, in the military. So, but for a brief period of time, I leaned into cannabis, and it was great because I had a hunch that if you went on Craigslist at that time and went to the general for sale section, you could type in not weed, but you could type in 420 or something like that, and you would find someone. And that's exactly what I did, because I didn't know anybody when I moved up there. I just I went and fucking found different dudes on Craigslist to buy weed from, and I went and about a year, about actually 8 months into it is when we decided to get divorced, and us living up there, and we had this apartment. So the next 6 months, 4 months of me being there were tumultuous. We already hated each other, but it had just reached a new type of level. She was going around and dating, dudes and going on vacations. And I was staying home with the kids, and then we kind of trade, and then I would go and do whatever the fuck I wanted to do at the time, so it was this kind of in and out sort of
so you're living there, but you're dating other girls and she's dating other guys, but you're still living together.
Kind of. Yeah. I mean, it was weird.
Yeah.
So,
it happens. It's very California to do that, but
yeah. And then I went to I had a GI Bill, right? Because you pay into this thing called your Montgomery GI Bill whenever you go and start Army, Navy, Marines, or Air Force, which is basically it's a government bond that you're paying into that matures and becomes a certain amount of money for college. So I was like, okay, well, I'm divorced and I haven't gotten to do any of the shit that I wanted to do for the last pretty much decade. And, I'm going to go, and I always wanted to go to Berkeley, College of Music, but I was like, I can't leave the state because I have these two little boys. So I was like, I'm going to go to Musicians Institute, and then I'm just going to live down there, and I'm going to go up and go see the kids on the weekends. And it's going to be just like it was when I was in the fucking military, but I'm going to go do something for myself finally. And so I went to Musicians.
You're playing guitar though throughout the whole time that you're in the military though, right?
Oh yeah. Big time. I mean, I took a guitar to Iraq with me. There's a video somewhere of me playing Floods, this Floods solo on this tractor trailer. Yeah. Playing it, and we're in Al Assad, and all of a sudden I had to take it down because there's mortars coming.
Oh,
wow. There's this friend of mine who has it on some drive.
I'd love to see
sent it
that.
to me a while ago, but it was a Dropbox link.
That's amazing.
It's but it was one of those things where I went to go find it again, but it's a Dropbox link. But I'm guessing wherever he moved it, or whatever drive that the file was on, is not there. I didn't download it, but there is a good amount. Let me make sure I just fucked that up. Sorry. All right. Is that better? There we go.
That's good.
But yeah, a guitar playing going on pretty much the whole time. And despite the military being the least conducive environment to playing music as possible, I still always just wanted to do it, you know, like
Were
always.
you able to be in was there like a jam band there that you could play with of other musicians?
No, there were. Oh, well, and on the more official side of things, there are like the Navy band and the Army band and shit like that. But literally, like, um, and I'm sure the players are really, really great. And I'm not taking anything away from it, but you're going to play like an admiral's ball in like DC, and you know, probably like Jeffrey Epstein was there, and you're probably fucking, you're probably like gonna play like a set of songs that have nothing to do with what you care about at all. And I mean, it just wasn't for me. So, but no, I didn't. I knew a few other guys that kind of played guitar, but nobody who cared about it as much as I did. You know what I mean? As far as being in the military was concerned. So,
so you're just like, are you just learning? Like, are you just playing along to records or playing, you know, like playing the things that you like? What are you playing when you're there? Like, are you learning Carcass Heartwork or, you know, whatever?
yeah, I guess I'm learning from records. And then, very briefly, when I was in Oxnard, I joined this like local band. They were like kind of new metal, but then they started becoming like metalcore, and like all of them were older than me. There was like a lot of big like Tongan and Samoan dudes, you know what I mean? There's like in Oxnard, obviously you have like a big Hispanic community, but there's like this big like Polynesian Tongan community. So like I was in a band with all these giant fucking Polynesian guys, and like all of them fought. All of them were real good at fighting, and like so like I kind of had they was like I for a brief period of time when I was in Homeport, they were kind of like my older brothers in a way, and so I played like shows at bars with them. You know what I mean? Like you know,
These are your first shows.
Other than when I was like a kid and I played a show at like a church with like some, you know what I mean? But yeah, those are my first like shows as an adult, you know? Yeah.
Yeah. Rad.
Um,
That's pretty cool.
yeah, I mean, dude, that's what I was talking about is like, as far as Fresno went, there wasn't even that, at least that I could discover, like a group of dudes at that time who just wanted to start a cool metal band. You know what I mean? Like so I, at the time, other than like when I stopped playing with those dudes and I moved to San Diego, I was just constantly putting out ads on Craigslist or looking at other people's ads on Craigslist. And I set up I very briefly had a MySpace page, which was like just guitar videos. You know what I mean? Of like me playing guitar, being like, hey, like kind of, like this is what I can play and stuff. And I went to a whole bunch of dudes. Like I can't even remember, but I would show up to guys' spots that like really couldn't play because I was just hungry as fuck and I wanted to do something. And by the time I was even doing that when I got out of the Bay Area, this is a weird story. You know that guy who was gonna play bass in Devil Driver that played like an upright bass for a minute? Did Berkman ever tell you about that guy?
Mm-mm.
There was this dude, I forget his name, but like there was a brief period of time where Devil Driver was going to have like
I kind of remember this. Yeah, I kind of remember this. Like
I ended
the very
up
beginning of Devil Driver, right?
Yes. He's in one of their fucking DVDs too, or something like that, very briefly. But didn't know this, you know, and also didn't know JB at this time. But like, I answered, or that dude answered a Craigslist ad. He was living in some like warehouse in Alameda or something like that, had his upright bass and shit like that. And I was just like, hey, I'm trying to start a metal band. And he hit me up. He's like, hey, dude, you want to come jam? And like I showed up over there and he started telling me, he's like, yeah, I was almost in Devil Driver. And at the time I thought he was full of shit. I was like, I mean, it just, the story and everything and him living in this warehouse just seemed far-fetched. But then Berkman confirmed it for me. So I was like, unrelated but related. But yeah, just to show, I guess when I was living in the Bay Area, out of the military, I was still trying to find people to play with. And at one point or another, just resigned myself to the notion that the best thing that I could possibly do for myself in terms of playing music professionally was going to be to try to find an established band to play with. Because, like, at this point, trying to get my own thing off the ground was fucking insanely difficult. You know what I mean? I felt like I just like had I feel like I wasn't trying to start like Mahavishnu Orchestra or like another like you know, Dream Theater. I just wanted to start a cool fucking metal band. You know what I mean? And I just couldn't find dudes really who could play. So off to LA I went with my GI Bill
to join MIT.
Yeah, and
I mean, at what point during your military career are you like, I'm a pretty good guitar player? Like, did it kind of dawn on you per year, like, I might be better than some of these other guys here?
I mean,
or maybe
I felt that way.
I know when I listen to you, I'm like, man, that dude's fucking a lot better than a lot of guys. So,
oh, thanks. I mean, I felt that way when I was a kid. I mean, I could play to like a pretty, you know, good level when I was a kid. But I mean, I knew going into the military that this was just going to be temporary, the military, and then I was going to try to find people to play with. You know what I mean? Like so the whole time, you know, I kept playing and kept trying to do it in hopes that I would, I don't know. I didn't know how I was going to do it, but in hopes that I would find some people to play with.
Yeah. And when you get to MIT, do you I have probably an irrational hatred of MIT. That's what I would call it. I have an irrational dislike of most of the guys that come out of MIT, just because I feel like, you know, it gets so nerded out and so theory, and like that somehow, like, when I hear those kind of players, how was that as an experience for you? Like, was it a good experience? Did you did it totally lift you up? Did it?
I hear you. I mean, I think I understand what you're saying. I feel similarly. I think a good portion of the people who went there, at least when I was going there, would say that they feel similarly. I mean, the job of these types of schools is to sell some kind of dream, right? So like for GIT, the guitar program, you have some pretty serious alumni. You have like Frank Gambale, you have Paul Gilbert. There's even guys that went there for a little bit and were like, fuck this, and ended up having like crazy careers. Like Rivers Cuomo was one of those dudes. Jeff Buckley's another one who went there for a little bit. I guess I fall into that category. Yeah. I went there and I had a great group of dudes my first 2 quarters that I was there. And I had a couple of great instructors, and I felt like it was piecing things together for me that I needed pieced together as far as understanding harmony in the, you know, in the greater sense, like understanding everything. So yeah, there was a period of time that I thought it was great, but yes, I felt like at one point or another, it was like a beauty pageant of guitar players. And like, there was also this other thing where I need to be careful how I say this.
No, don't be careful.
I have to.
No, you don't.
There's this other part of this thing there where there are like really grumpy, unhappy guys in the role of educator at that school. And like, they almost, because like by proxy of like their unhappiness, they almost kind of insinuate to you like they are a gatekeeper. And look, I think that there are some great things about um, music academia for sure. I think that you're not going to find it at that school. You're going to find it at the places like Berkeley and probably some of these other schools. I mean, what they want there at Musicians Institute is they want I mean, dude, I think when I was there, it was $11,000 per quarter. And I think each quarter was like 9 weeks. And I'm sure it's closer to 20 now. So it's a fuckload of money. Plus you're living in Hollywood in like typical Hollywood living situation where you're living with like 4 other motherfuckers that don't do their dishes and shit and everything. So, I think that the MI thing was a cool-ish experience for a bit, mostly for a very small handful of the guys that were teaching there at the time. Like, there's this dude named Doug Rappaport. He plays with Edgar Winter. He's fucking deadly, and I learned a lot from him. There's a guy named...
When you have a good teacher, though, right? Like,
yeah, for sure. And then there's another guy, Ed Finn. He was like kind of like your like the big kind of guitar etiquette, sort of like seeing like chords and triads everywhere. And then there was this other guy who taught theory, and he was a brilliant guy. He was like a super fun guy, and it was almost like you got the impression the entire time that he was teaching that he knew what a bullshit school MI was. So it kind of like softened the blow of it, you know. I mean, it's fine. Fucking MI hasn't asked me to come there and do anything, so they won't now. Nothing will change. So.
Maybe they will. Maybe they're like, fuck. We want to have someone fun like you. Is this the so now you're living in Hollywood, you're divorced. Is this the slutty Wes Hauch era of your life?
Yeah, probably. That was one of them, and then I suppose there's another one.
Oh, there's multiple slutty eras.
There's another one in like 2015 or 16. There's like a brief one, and they all came like both of those followed like a long relationship that was also shitty, you know. So
right.
I remember this is an important part of the no fucking regrets, the slutty talk. This is.
It's nice hearing about MIT, but let's get to the slutty Wes era.
I mean, I think, yeah, I mean, I wouldn't, you know, it's weird. Probably all in total, like, I just don't want to. I don't want to say too much because I have 2 boys, especially one who's 13, who like thinks what I do is really cool and like watches every single thing
definitely
on the internet. So I don't want to go and
watch this podcast.
What?
Don't let your son watch this podcast.
Oh, I know. Yeah. But I mean, sometimes I can't help it. Sometimes he just searches for shit, and then he's like, "Oh, there's something."
Worst. It's the fucking worst, right? My son's friends do the same shit. They're like, "Your dad used to be a drug dealer." I'm like, he comes up to me like, "You used to deal drugs, Dad?" I'm like, "What the fuck?" Like, fuck?
yeah.
Fucking friends.
I know. It happens. And like, they think shit like that is fascinating, so of course they want you to elaborate on it or some way whenever whenever they do get to talk to you about it. But yeah, I mean, I would say I went through a few brief periods with the ladies, but like it was never anything like, I'll put it this way, like I don't think I'm bad at like, you know, talking to girls, but I'm also just like I'm sort of like, I've been dumb and been sort of a serial monogamer, you know what I mean? Like I would jump out of one relationship and into another. But yes, there were frenetic areas of sluttiness, I guess. They were brief, but you know, were noteworthy. I mean, maybe, like I said, maybe we can like we can talk more about like drugs and sex and stuff like
In
that.
like
That's both the kids
in
are
like 4
18.
years.
Yeah.
I'll have you back for sure.
Yeah.
I'll have you back sooner than that, but for sure. But then we'll get to that era.
Yeah. It's definitely, there's some stuff in there. I mean, let's put it this way: whatever slutty era that I've had, both of them combined, I'm sure that they are nothing compared to 95, 96, 97 Machine Head sluttiness.
Right. Well, probably
I'm sure.
92, 90, 90, 91, 92, 88, 89, Robb Flynn. That was
Is more so than the mid 90s, you think?
for sure. Yeah. In some ways I kind of I did a similar thing to you. Like I was constantly like in a relationship, and then I'd go solo for like 6 months, 9 months, and then I'd somehow end up back in a long relationship. So
Yeah.
and then
Anyone who's watching, don't do that either.
yeah,
I mean, let's put it this way. Like, I was thinking about this too. Like I don't think this is my joke, or I mean, if it's not a joke, I think I heard Chris Rock say this, but like they should like freeze. Like there should be some way where they can like remove your balls or ovaries for a girl, and they just put them in this cryogenic freezing thing, so like you can get them back when you're like 30, but like you can go and fucking be an idiot and be irresponsible and not completely ruin your life and bring another life into the world or whatever, you know what I mean? Like if they could find some way, if I were ever president, I would try to push that forward. It's like, like you're not going to prevent the kids from fucking, you know what I mean? But you can kind of prevent them from like fucking their lives up if we can just make it so they can't have kids or whatever.
right.
I don't know. When you think about it too, like, not to sound like a total fucking like a wuss, but like I tell both my boys this. I was like, I remember what my life was like before sex was in it, and it was way simpler. You know what I mean? Like, and I'm not trying to like, I mean, I just tell them that I'm like, I know it's tight, like, because and especially now, because they've been home for a year, they haven't been able to hang out with their friends, and
Right.
they've got phones and they've got Reddit, which like, if you go on Reddit, you could type in some of the most like acute search criteria. You could type in like redhead, wonky tit, zits on ass, like cleft palate, and there's going to be thousands of videos for that some Reddit thread is like put together, and like, so you can't really blame kids, especially during the whole quarantine last year, for beating off or becoming maybe.
Oh my God. My oldest son, he's 16 going on 17. He's going to be 17 next month. He lives in the bathroom. I mean, like he's in the bathroom for like 4 to 5 hours a day, like broken up over 2 or 3 different. I mean, like we're at like 9:30. We're like, bro, your little bro's got to brush his teeth. Get the fuck out and go into your bedroom. Jesus. What? I'm not done yet. We all know what I said. That done the other day. I'm like, we all know what you're doing. Okay. Like I know what I do it too, but 20 minutes, wrap it up.
Yeah. Well, I mean, dude, like I think it is just like the highly of like, it's so available and there's so much different shit to check out. You can't really blame them. Like, I mean, it's not like when you loaned a friend like some penthouse. I remember the first time I saw or became aware of lesbians, like, oh wow, that's a thing, was like a Penthouse magazine when I was like 13 or 14. And
that's awesome.
Yeah, fuck yeah. I mean, it was one of those things where it was like, I remember my buddy who loaned it to me being like bugging me like, dude, come on, you got to give that thing back, man. And like, that's not even a concern of our kids now, because they're just like, they don't need to like loan each other magazines or anything like that. They can just go on Reddit, or I
Totally.
mean, for fuck's sake, if you have a Twitter account, you can see a good amount of porn these days, you know? Like,
I hope that they're not. I mean, we've told them, we'd prefer that they don't go on porn. Like I'm, for all, whatever I talk about, like I'm just like, dude, like just wait a while. Like you don't want to get sucked into that world. Like you don't. It's an ugly. There's a lot of ugly veins that come off of that thing.
oh
Like,
yeah, big time.
just
Big
kind
time.
of keep your mind, use your imagination if it's got to be like that. At the very least.
I
At least
think
until you're old.
that
At least until you're older. That's what I say. Have either of your kids smoked weed yet? Have you caught them
no
doing
weed, no weed, and no drinking or anything like that. I mean, dude,
Wow.
that's a weird thing, but they both have had to have the porn talk with them about, and like, um, I don't, I don't know that the biggest thing for me is my parents were so strict that it made me do more wild shit. So my strategy has been and always will be is like, if you're honest with me, always, I we will always work it out. You know what I mean? Like, well, whatever's going on, we'll always talk about it and figure it out. So like that seems to have worked to my advantage. Like they don't hide anything from me. So like I was aware of, especially my big guy, starting to look at porn a few years ago, and I told him the same thing. I was like, "Look, dude, like, you know, uh, this is about as normal and carnal of an interest that you can have, but there are. It's pretty easy for you to become desensitized or less excited by the normal act of sex because of this at a really, really early age, or at the very least, you're going to like have a very distorted view of what
Totally.
sex
Totally.
should be. So,
Same exact thing. Just like, dude, this is not. You're gonna go and have sex with a chick, and she's not gonna do anything in this video. She's gonna lay there, and like it's gonna be great. But that's like this and fucking blowjobs and up the like. No, like this, like maybe when you get older, but at least not at whatever age you're at now.
yeah,
And it's unrealistic of you for you to, you know, that's exactly what I told him. I was just like, I don't want you to have this fake reality of what this is. This is not reality. This is the movies.
yeah, and like, I mean, it's one of those things that I think if I can just tell them that, and then have them not feel like they have to hide, maybe there's a higher chance that they'll be like, maybe I won't go like look for the gnarliest thing and go beat off on it right now. Whereas like if I was like, oh, you better not go look at porn, like what that did to me as a kid was like, well, I better go and do whatever bad thing I can because that sounds way more fun now.
Right.
You know.
I mean, you get kind of a cool factor too. You're a heavy metal dad. So they probably think that, at the very least, they think that you've done some crazy stuff. So they know. Like, you're not like some nerd parent. Like, you're cool.
To some degree, I mean, I think my life is cut and fucking two for them. I mean, they know me as a dude, or like they know of me as like a guy who is, like had this military job and everything. They know me as like this guy now who has, I guess, been able to carve out some sort of career where I've been able to make enough money just with my guitar. And like, I think, their idea of that is probably reasonable. And I'm glad for that. You know what I mean? Because I've never been self aggrandizing about it. They do think that Jonzo is very cool. They think that like because and right, like that's what I'm saying is that they have like a pretty good barometer of what like my fledgling metal band sort of means in the pantheon of bands, and then what Uncle Berkland's band is like doing, you know what I mean, playing like sheds and shit, because I've taken them to those shows. So like they do they they understand, I guess, that like, you know, who I am and what I do, but I think that they have like a pretty fairly they're able to accurately appraise what it's worth. I mean, I think that they like it and they think it's cool, but like, you know, we use we use this term like Birkland, like the high like oh man, you're on the high road. Like you skipped out on like the you know, like the thousand cap room type of world, or like even the you know, like the van tours, and you went straight to the sheds. And so like that joke carried on to like my boys, and you know, they'll ask something what's going on, like, oh, what tour are you doing? I'm like, oh yeah, I'm doing this tour with this band in Europe next year or whatever. And they're like, is it high road? You know, like they want to know, like, so what's that? Are those bands on the high road? So I mean, uh yes, but not irrationally, you know. I mean, definitely, I'm sure your kids like have much more of a like, whoa, my dad's fucking like a G type of thing, you know what I mean? Because they have like the quantifiable shit to kind of make them feel that way, you know? Like you've got 30, 40, you got really fucking like 30 years of Machine Head now, and then like time before that of being like a songwriter and a guitar player and
I just think they think I'm dad.
really?
Yeah, for sure. You know, they definitely, you know, they know that I'm worth something, but I'm just like dad, which is fine by me. You know, like I don't care either way. You know, I think it dawned on them, you know, it dawns on them from time to time, you know, because, you know, they don't see me like even playing music ever, you know, like I come down here and I jam with them a few times, but they just kind of see me at home cooking food, like, you know, telling them to mow the lawn and whatever. Like I'm just dad. And, and then we'll go, you know, like the other day we came home and there was a bunch of fans sit in front of my house, and just like out of nowhere, and I pulled up and I was like, oh hey, what's going on? And I was like, hey, let me, you know, get my son in. They're like, who's that, Dad? I'm like, it's just some fans, they want some autographs, you know. So like in those
Outside of your fucking house?
out of my house, yeah.
Wow.
Which I was like, I almost asked them how they fucking figured it out, and then I was like, of course they figured it out, you know, like, but you know, in those kind of moments he absolutely knows that you know. I also think too, like, I think that in some ways I think it scarred them in some ways, you know, being in a band. You know, my oldest especially, he was 2 when The Blackening came out. You know, we had just had Wyatt. Wyatt was a month old, and I went on tour for The Blackening, and I was on tour for 3 years. I mean, like,
wow.
not with very, you know, 2 weeks off between tours. Like, it was a crazy, amazing, unbelievably successful time. And it was like the highest of highs, and it was the lowest of lows. You know, like my wife and I almost got divorced umpteen fucking times on that cycle because I was just gone. And I don't really think it affected Wyatt, my youngest, as much, but, you know, 2-year-old Xander, who was just starting to form ideas, like, I was gone until he was almost 5 years old. You know, like, it was, when I came home, it was like a stranger almost coming home. And, you know, I think that, you know, so I think that somewhere in the back, and I've talked with them about this, that I said, you know, you're probably gonna, you know, you're gonna hate me at some point for like all the time that I was gone away from you and wasn't in your life, and the moments that I missed in your life. And, you know, just understand that this is the way that Dad makes money, and, you know, this is what I chose to do, you know, a long time ago, not realizing, you know, the type of effects that it would have on you guys being away from you. And, you know, that we just had to do what we had to do. And so, you know, I think they get it now. Like, I've said that to them enough times over the years, because I just felt I needed to say that to them, that they start to get it. And then just, you know, they'll go to a show and, you know, see fucking people going crazy, and they're like, okay, my dad's famous or whatever. You know, or there'll be people outside, or they'll be at the grocery store and some dude runs up to me and wants my autograph. So they get that, you know. I think they get the fame side of it. I don't know if they look at me like as some special musician, though, like kind of how you were saying. Like, I don't think it's like that, you know.
That's that's an interesting sort of thing. I was kind of like, when I started doing whenever I got out of the military and decided that I was going to figure out how to make music work one way or the other, I got in a rather big fight with both of my parents because they felt that I was being irresponsible as a parent, even for the act of going to Musicians Institute, like, and paying for it by myself and all this other shit, you know. And one of the things that my mother said to me, because I, you know, there was this kind of like side note. There's not too much to this story, but there was this band called Threat Signal that was on Nuclear Blast that I almost kind of joined in between this time of going to Musicians Institute and stuff, and they just shit directly in my heart about it, both my parents, and they were like, you know, your kids are gonna fucking hate you and this and that. And I was like, if I go and play music for 6 weeks at a time, or even if I'm gone longer than that, how is that different than anything that I've been doing for the last fucking 8.5 years of being deployed? And my mom's answer to that was, well, you didn't have a choice in that. And I was like, well, I did. I could have gone and fucking smoked meth and popped on a piss test and gotten kicked out. I could have gone and like completely just been like a bird finger to the contract, bird finger to everything that I said I was going to do, and then just gone and done whatever I wanted. But like, you're saying basically what she, through deductive reasoning, I figured out what she wasn't proud of the decision. It didn't make her proud of me like being in the military was. And that has been a thing since then until today, really. And I guess, I don't know, like some people ask, you know, every once in a while, I'm sure people ask you this too, like, and you definitely have you're more qualified to answer the question, but people ask like, should I like go for it and try to make this music thing work and shit like that? And the truth is, every time I've been like, I'm like, man, sometimes playing it safe is great advice. Sometimes it is. Fucking like, there's a handful of people in my life that I know that like were just, they knew for sure that they didn't want, you know, the crazy sort of cycle that happens when you make a piece of art and then you have to completely turn your life upside down for 3 years like you did to go and support it, right? Like there's people who kind of figured out early on, that's not really what I want to do. I think I want a dog, and I think I want to fucking, you know what I mean? I want to wake up in my bathroom and piss whenever I want to and all this other stuff. And they figured that out early on. Sometimes playing it safe is great advice, but I would say if you'd have to kind of just decide how much it matters to you. And at that point, you know, and still at this point, like sometimes I wish that it didn't matter as much to me as it does, but I got bit real young, and this is the shit that I care about the most. I mean, other than my kids and my new wife, you know what I mean? Like, you know, the wife I've been married to now, but like, yeah, like music, and I hate to sound, you know, like I'm making it more existential than it needs to be, but like it kind of chooses you, you know what I mean, in a way. And my expectations are very well managed, so I guess anyone who would ask the same question, or anyone who's listening to this and is like, man, should I go and try to make it work as a shit, like, just expect it. Don't expect it to completely change your fucking life in a way that, you know, you've seen it do to your heroes, because like, and that shouldn't be the reason you want to get into it anyway. But like, yeah, fucking, if you care about it and you care about writing songs and you care enough about going and traveling and not eating. You've been in some van, you know, like eaten once and like pissed in a bottle 14 times a
Your
day.
Gatorade bottle.
Yeah, and you're ready to go fucking load in at Joe's Grotto in fucking Tempe and go play your white hot music to anyone who will notice, just so you can, you know, if that matters to you, despite all the other shit.
For the
Yeah.
75 people at Joe's Grotto, then
Yeah.
put your guitar back into its case and grab your cabinet with one arm and your guitar on the other and go drag it out to your van and stick it back in your van and then go drink a few beers and then drive for 6 hours.
Yeah. Like if all of that shit is still cool with you and it matters enough to you, then yeah, sure, go for it. You know, like
you know, something you said that was interesting to me. You said it a little bit back ago about how your mom she wasn't proud of you being a musician. You know, that she was proud of you when you were in the military, but she wasn't proud of you as a musician. It's funny because I almost never talk about this, but you know, my mom is the same thing. Like my mom was absolutely not proud of me being a musician. I mean, for decades, every time I went to Christmas with my grandma, and my mom just passed away last month, and you know, I'd go to Christmas, or I'd get like I hear they're hiring at the post office. You know, they say garbage men make a lot of money. And I'm like, what? Like, for a while, I just kind of took it. Then one Christmas, I fucking exploded, like just fucking DEFCON 5 nuclear explosion. And you know, then I didn't show up to the next Christmas, and then after that, I started coming back. And you know, she never came out to. She only saw me one time in Machine Head.
Really?
She saw me one time in Violence, when Violence opened for GBH and The Accused, and so you can imagine what this fucking crowd was like.
Oh, wow.
The Gristle Studs punk, you know, an Acne fucking crowd. It was just completely out of hand. And then she saw us when we played with Metallica, which was, you know, a super gigantic highlight of my, you know, we played Shark Tank, San Jose, the main support to Metallica. Like this was like dream come true shit. And that was the one and only time.
I mean, that's pretty radical. I mean, and I think that,
but you know, for every, you know, even the Metallica show wasn't impressive to her. You know what I mean?
Really?
Like, it wasn't like, it was so like, I can't remember what the comment she was after, but it was like, she talked to me after and it was just like, she's like, you're like a preacher up there. Like you got everybody in the palm of your hand. I was like, yeah, cool. She's just like, you should become a preacher. I was just,
yeah.
Like, dude, really? Yeah. I'm like, really? Like, you know, like you just, and then, you know, that was a long time ago when we did that. That was another decade before, you know, of shows that I kept on doing. She never came to any of the other shows. And it was just like, you know, to, you know, we can't all be main support to Metallica. Like not every show is that, you know, but that's a highlight, you know, and you got this other level where you just operate, you know, we headline the Fox, we do 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 seaters, you know, throughout the world here and there. And like, that's a good,
that is like the apex of what I would ever want to achieve with my band. So like, yeah, it's crazy that like, it's crazy the differences in what will make people impressed. Like my dad, for instance, and this has just been a thing kind of forever with him, because when they moved up to the Central Valley, he started a landscaping business and he's got a contractor's license, and he, you know, at one point in time during the 90s was probably making pretty good money for the area and the time. So when I get back home, like briefly when I moved back to Fresno, I was in 2015. I'd been doing the Skype guitar teaching thing and sort of built this Skype like teaching thing up over the last 6-7 years to where it's been something that I can really rely on. And it's turned into like a great thing that, like, you know what I mean, where I could take care of my family and all this other shit with. And it started as being this thing that I just did between touring, and now that just the last few years I've been getting this band together, it just been kind of my main thing. And my dad one time, he was just like irritated with me because he felt I wasn't doing anything, and he was like, hey, I'm gonna go do some brush work, like, cut down some brush over here at this account's house. Like, why don't you come with me? I'll pay you $50, And I was just like, it was the same type of thing where I wanted to blow up and be like, you motherfucker, I make $50 like in a half an hour. Fuck you. You know what I mean? But like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? But he was like, he won't ever get it. She won't ever get it. And like, as much as, and my wife would tell you this, if my wife was here right now, she would say like, yes, I absolutely have like this insolent inner child that wants my parents to be proud of me, but like, it's just not in the cards. So like,
Right.
it's
Right.
it's been one of those things that I've gotten better at as I'm older with acceptance, where like you just get to this point where like, as much as I'd like to be able to derive some part of my self-worth of my parents being proud of me, everything else is pretty goddamn good. So like, I just, some people get that, some people don't, and I don't, so that's okay. You just gotta fucking, figure, and maybe in some way, like I said, kind of earlier, like if it weren't for the certain things that went on in my life or your life or whatever, maybe we wouldn't have ended up starting metal bands. We would have been like those dudes who like, wore the Billabong and Stussy shirts and like got fucking, got really good grades and shit, and have supplements in their fucking trunk of their car and everything. Like maybe that would have been us, but we both, I mean, in some way, I mean, you definitely have like left this crazy mark that's still going off of like a certain life experience. You know what I mean? Like a level of life experience that made you go in a direction of making a certain type of art. And it's not for everyone. It's not for mom most of the time.
Sometimes it's like that older generation. I think that if you're not the Beatles, you're not successful.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like if you didn't reach that status, if you're not the Beach Boys, where all over every fucking radio, ubiquitous part of the musical canvas of the world, then like you're nothing. And like, what are you even doing? And it's, I think it's hard for them to, to see that there's a whole middle ground in there that you can be successful and be happy and be content and, and still want more, sure. But that that you can live comfortably.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's interesting too, because I know for sure Machine Head's been played on terrestrial radio all over the fucking world for like 20 years. And it's crazy that your mom was just like, oh, whatever.
You're not the Beatles. And who is? Fuck. Anyway, I tell you what, man, it's been a really, really awesome conversation, man. I'm super stoked that you came on the show.
Yeah, dude. Thanks for having me. It's cool that like this conversation went like this, and we don't even know each other. So maybe whenever, I don't know, whenever people can play shows again and stuff like that, we'll just have it in person. I guess, yeah. I mean, we've not talked about my band or my record at all, but that's fine. That's fine.
I was gonna say, well, you can give you the biggest plug ever. Alluvial it's dropping this month, right?
Yeah, on the 28th.
Awesome.
Monty Connor signed us. As you called him in the Roadrunner, the United DVD, you called him Montel O'Connor or something like that.
Montel O'Connorovich.
Yeah, I'm very grateful. Like as a baby band, I mean, it's our second record. Technically, I call it our first because the first record's kind of like an instrumental, guitar record that was supposed to have vocals on it, but then it was just like, fuck it, put it out. But yeah, it's me and Kevin Muller, who used to be in Suffocation. He's on the last Suffocation record. He's in a band called Pyrexia too, also kind of like in the lineage of Suffocation. Tim Walker plays bass. He was in a band called Entheos, and he's just known to be a killer all around Texas. Everyone just kind of knows him.
Naveen is been my drummer on my last 3 songs. Naveen from Entheos.
Naveen's done the last few Machine Head singles.
Yeah.
Oh, killer! That is awesome. I mean, he's great.
Yeah.
He's about as like if you were like if you were in a situation where you needed to hire someone to play drums, you could 100% trust in Naveen doing it excellently. So yeah, that's awesome. And then Matthew Palazzo. He's played with Decrepit Birth. I'm guessing maybe it was when Gabe wasn't playing with Decrepit Birth, but yeah, I mean he filled in for them, and yeah, we got a new record out called Sarcoma. It's comes out on May 28th. I think that if anyone likes the first record and likes these 3 singles that have come out, I think your
voice sounds killer, man.
Oh, thanks, man. Yeah, it's just out of necessity.
Really fucking good.
It was out of necessity, and I remember I watched your podcast with Monty. And you guys were talking about like you being in violence, and it was like the idea of you being Robb Flynn, the vocalist of this band, it wasn't a twinkle in your eye or anyone's eye yet back in like the violence days, but you kind of had to step into the role of doing vocals because you just needed to make the vision come together. Same thing, just like it's the only song that I'm really doing like verses on the record, that 40 Stories song, but yeah, same thing, out of necessity. I was like, I passively sang my whole life, but it was, I got to do this, and I'm glad it worked out. I'm glad people liked it.
This is your first time singing in a band?
Yes. Yeah. First time, like I said,
singing on a record,
and trying to, there's other choruses on the record. I'll send it to you if you want me to send it to you, but there's other choruses on the record that I sing on. There's not really a song like 40 where I'm doing like verses on.
It's killer, man. I thought it was really good. It's kind of got like I don't know. I don't want to compare you to another band. I hate when people do that, but
it's okay. Yeah. We're in the nest.
It's got a good vibe. It's got a really good vibe. Very modern sounding, very fucking leads and guitar playing is ridiculous as always. I saw you for the first time in the Faceless when you guys did the Summer Slaughter thing.
You saw us on that?
Yeah. You guys played the Fillmore, right? In San Francisco.
Yeah. That's crazy.
Yeah, with Decapitated.
That's crazy that you were there, and I didn't know that. I would have probably been really nervous if I knew that you were there.
I ended up meeting Vogue for the first time there that night, and all the Decapitated dudes I had been emailing with Vogue, but I had never met him, and then so we hung out for the first time that night. You guys were fucking brutal.
Man, Vogue, what a fucking guy!
Fuck.
What a deadly player, and like what a the amount of shit that has hit that dude's life in the last 15 years would have made most people quit, and he's just keeps going with a smile on his face. I really admire it.
Yeah, for sure, man. Like fucking, I had him on the podcast, and just listening to him tell these stories was like fucking hell, man. Like it was just, it really is inspired. Like, you think your life's hard, like, step into his shoes for a minute and then just fucking keep on putting one foot in front of the other.
Yeah. I guess it's that Eastern, just European fucking perseverance. I don't know what it is. I whatever they did, if they ever bottled it up and sold it, I'd want some of it. Cause that dude is definitely, I mean, I think he kind of knows this, but like, he's definitely one of my like living sort of like guitar heroes, you know what I mean? And I try not to, make him feel weird whenever I talk to him, but he's
Oh, dude. I mean, like playing with him for that whole tour cycle, I was like, Jesus. I mean, fucking Christ.
I saw you guys at the center stage, the big round thing, you know what I mean? In Atlanta. It was like last year.
Right.
I saw you guys
is that
there.
where you live now? You live in Atlanta?
Yeah, I live in Atlanta, and we hung out for a minute. And I mean, dude, I didn't get a chance to say hello to you or anyone because that was brutal. I mean, I think you guys played for 3 hours, but I wanted to say, I wanted to mention that, man, Lagudi has you guys sounding massive. Like I would struggle to say talk about a band sounding better. Like it was fucking deadly. And I mean, it was crazy too, because you had two different drummers, fucking like two different personnel, and everyone sounded great. It was pretty awesome, man. You should I hope you were proud of how everything went on that, because man, it sounded fucking crazy.
Oh, yeah. Steve's incredible. Like he's fucking, I love him, man. He's like my right hand man. And Vogue. Yeah. Anyway, once again though, new record dropping May 28th, you said?
May 28th on Nuclear Blast. Check it out. Please pick it up. I know that times are tight, but if you want to buy it, it would make it so you probably see
buy
it.
that shit, motherfuckers. Come on now.
Come on.
I tell you what, been awesome having you on here. It was a great conversation.
Yeah, big time, man. Thanks for having me. And I hope that, I hope we get to see each other soon for real. And take care, dude. Thanks for having me on.
Definitely. Ladies and gentlemen, that right there was the mighty Wes Hauch here on No Fucking Regrets.
With Robb Flynn.